advantage of that. You saw that the level of traffic downtown increased dramatically
Right.
from, you know, the 1st of May to the 8th of May. And so we're in the process of kind of putting together our plan too. The borough is working, I think they're going to have a press conference tomorrow on Friday on what they're going to do for reopening. I'd just like to say that, first of all, we've kind of been open to the degree that some of these other organizations are opening. Public Works, Community Development have been open throughout this for appointments, for building permits, for driveway permits, for any type of information that they need. And so while we weren't as open to the public as we normally are, we have always been available for the community and available for people, inquiries and solutions. The library is going to start curbside services. They actually started today. They're going to, first of all, fill all hold orders and then go to a checkout system by calling online and then being delivered at the curbside. City Hall, obviously City Hall with our tight confines are a little bit more problematic. We haven't had a bunch of issues with people not being able to conduct their business. One of the major problems with City Hall is if there is any type of infection or incidence of COVID, it would severely affect and hamper the ability for the finance department to operate. So we're going to take that one a little slower, and I welcome your input. So that's my manager's report for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the city manager regarding his report or anything else you'd like to bring to his attention? All righty, sir. I think you made it through the first one. Good job.
This is first meeting, huh?
Yeah. Well, not as, yeah,
With first as-
as city manager, yeah. All righty, Madam Clerk, your report, please.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Who?
I don't, she doesn't, she looks like,
Madam Mayor, I was gonna ask a question, just quickly, of the city manager. I was just driving home tonight and was kind of curious about the hole, in the pavement on, North Alaska Street, and I was curious what's happening with that.
Yeah, I've talked to Public Works about that. They really are waiting for the asphalt plant to come up. I drove there the other day myself, and I noticed that it probably could use a little bit of pre-work prior to the asphalt, because it is a pretty significant
dip,
speed bump.
Steve's
It is working in that respect. But yeah, I'll talk to them tomorrow and see if they can't do something more. You know, they spent a great deal of time last week with cleanup day, and so they devoted most of their efforts and resources to that. And now they're back to street sweeping and actually they're putting up Palmer High School banners the last few days, which is, so yeah, I'll talk to Chris about getting out there and do a little pre-work on that hole.
And I did reach out to the city manager, and they were going to call the neighbors there too to bring them up to date on what exactly our plans were. So I believe that's happened also within this last week. So,
Madam Mayor,
yes.
this is Councilwoman Combs. I just had a question about I was just wondering if we had any preliminary numbers or anything like that as far as how it compared with last year with the different quarantine situations going on, if it was as effective.
Okay. Do we have any updates on how
Well,
much,
it's all anecdotal. I don't have any poundage, but I will tell you that Public Works felt like they put away more appliances and household stuff there this year than they've ever done. You know, there was a lot of yard waste and all the things that normally were, but mainly it was really a lot of appliances and a lot of appointments that they made. Saturday, we were down there with the chamber doing a wonderful job as normal, but you know, it wasn't this high a volume of traffic, but there were still a good number of people, and of course the bikes went swiftly at the end, so everything worked out perfectly. And you know, I think really truthfully, the town, just the city looks fantastic the way right now. I mean, it didn't need a lot of cleaning, I don't think, you know, from the garbage pickup, but
Well, I know they were really busy because the people in my area reached out to me because they thought they were supposed to be there on Monday and they had so much stuff that they were going to postpone it till the next day. So I know they were very, very active. And I think everybody was pretty understanding. That was the only inquiry that I had got regarding their schedule or anything like that. Or did any of the rest of you get any kind of feedback that we should be aware of or anything? Okay, all right. Any further question of the city manager before we move on? We're ready for you, ma'am.
Thank you. I do have a written report in the council packet, just to highlight a few things on here, because when this was published last Wednesday, there has been some additional information gathered regarding a few of these items. Looking into a little bit more on the recall petition, there was a question that came up about refiling and what that timing is. The city code does follow the Alaska statute. We do
Okay.
not have our own language as to this process.
Okay,
We have our own language to initiative and referendum, but we do follow the state statute when it comes to recall. And there is nothing in the state statute that speaks directly to a refiling, where
Okay.
our initiative and our referendum process does.
okay,
If it's rejected or accepted, certified, there is a time frame that they have to wait before refiling. Obviously, not certified, but rejected.
uh-huh,
So I just wanted to mention that one, since that
Okay.
came up. So all the council is aware of that together. The regular election, I do want to let the council know that on Fridays, we have a clerk's meeting, teleconference. I think a lot of us have all of those, many of them. Ours is on Friday. And so that was after the publishing of this packet, and I did gather some really good information that I want to elaborate on for our October regular election.
okay,
One of the things that Nils had commented about the CARES Act funding is he did say that it is looking promising for us to be able to put in and have elections if we have to modify anything to qualify for that. So that makes me happy, because as we are trying to figure out what are we doing, we've already seen an increase in our requests for absentee by mail applications coming in. So those additional costs, we can hopefully submit into that, because those, I
reimbursement.
do believe that we can prove and show that we are seeing an increase due to this help.
good.
So I'm happy about that, to any financial relief we can have. Additionally, when we were on the phone talking, I received a letter, an email, not solicited, but I did receive an email from the Anchorage Municipality Clerk, and she provided in writing that she is committing for the city of Palmer to be able to use their election center, their facility. So if any need for anything, we can use their election center. And this mostly goes to a vote by mail or mail-in. If we get a large quantity, we can use that. In addition, that I found interesting in the letter is that she said that there would be some support that they could provide staff and election official wise as well. So that could help a lot in alleviating the fact that I do have election officials who are saying, I can't commit.
Right,
So I have seen a reduction in election official applications. And totally understand that. One of the things I do want to highlight here, it's the second bullet point. One of the things that I am implementing is half-day shifts for the election officials. That did help a couple of the election officials to turn in their application and say, okay, I'll do this because I will have a half-day
okay,
exposure if something, when we don't know what October will bring. So that was promising. It makes me feel better. That's been a request of our election officials for a while, and just trying to get it in the works and figure out the details. And I'm excited to say that this year we're able to offer it, and we would have offered it regardless of the coronavirus pandemic. But
okay,
I'm excited about that. I also found out that the Mat-Su Borough Assembly had directed the borough clerk to present some legislation to have the borough election considered to go to a vote by mail or a by mail for October.
okay,
I just wanted to let you know that's out there. There's a lot of talk right now. Kenai Peninsula Borough had legislation last week, had an ordinance already presented. They had their feasibility study presented to them that RDI they've been working with. So there's a lot of talk. The only person who's actually, the only city, I should say, that has taken a change, and it did absolutely come up because of coronavirus, was Valdez. They
Okay.
had an election the first week of May, and they did do a full-on vote by mail. And so that is not their normal procedure, but they did change it up. So the buzz is out there. What does October, what does November look like for us? And that also brings up, what does that look like for the Division of Election? And we were hoping to hear back from the Division of Election on what was going to happen with the primary and the general election, and she has not made a decision yet.
Okay.
So we're still uncertain there. So I want to make sure the council has that feedback, because I did say at the last council meeting that probably around May 1st.
Yeah.
Because that was the date I was told.
Right.
It was mentioned quickly tonight. I just want to reiterate that I did send council the meeting information that the Matsu Boroughs Wednesday press conference has been rescheduled to Friday. So you all have a link in your email to be able to Facebook that and watch it. And the other thing on our conference call that I've been kind of bugging AML about is, what are we doing with the summer conference? Because this is one of those things that we need to start preparing our travel plans, if that's
Sure.
what we're going to be doing. And Nils had said that this week the AML board was going to meet and discuss the summer conference.
Okay.
I believe that they did meet yesterday, so I will leave that up to council member Sabrina Combs to fill in the gap on that
Hot
one.
off the press here.
That's right.
And unfortunately, so we just set a drop dead date of making that decision by the beginning of June. But we're waiting for those final mandates. The governor has said he will release by May 18th to determine what's going on. I'm going to say it's unlikely that we have our meeting in Fairbanks in August, but the final decision won't be made until towards the end of the month.
All right, thank you.
May I ask Councilmember Combs a question?
Absolutely. Go ahead. Thank you.
Councilmember Combs, the other thing that Nils had mentioned was that he was hopeful that we would not cancel the November conference, but it would be potentially really changed up to being a coronavirus pandemic type of education for the week. Was there a conversation about November?
Yes, at this point, there's no indication that we will be canceling it. The main issue that we talked about is a lot of smaller communities won't be able to afford the travel, plain and simple, with what's going on. So definitely turning it into something that's available to watch online, but making sure it's not something that would completely prohibit people from coming. So at this point, it's not set in stone, but there's no plan to cancel it yet.
But probably more Zoom and telephonic and.
A lot more
for November,
availability to access it online yet.
live stream or something. Yeah. Okay. Anything further on?
That was everything for my clerk's report. Thank you.
Okay. Can I ask you, how much did it cost the city of Palmer to obtain the attorney's report regarding the recall petition?
I have not seen that bill yet.
Oh, okay, okay.
But he put in, I want to say he put in the estimation of around 10 hours.
Uh-huh,
And it was the same rate that we pay our current attorney, which I believe is 200.
yeah. So,
175 or 200,
Yeah.
I think. I'm not sure exactly.
and he didn't have any travel time, you were able to send him everything and
Yep.
stuff, so.
Yeah,
So
no travel time.
someplace between 1,500 and a couple thousand.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah, right. Is there anything in our code regarding, since it was rejected, for the petitioner to have to reimburse the city for those fees?
There is nothing in Alaska statute to that.
On-
And there
in
isn't
our-
anything in our code for that regarding referendums and petitions as well.
Okay,
Initiatives, I should say.
okay. So
Yeah,
nothing
no, there's
regarding
no-
those, just on like election recount. That's the only place where we have reimbursement from a petitioner.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The recount's the only one that we have some type of election fee.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
great question.
Any other questions from any of the council members? Okay. The next item is my report, which you have a copy of, and a couple of things that I added. There is a group that we met this morning via Zoom, looking at food security for the Palmer area. As you know, we do have the Palmer Food Bank, but very limited hours. And so there's been some requests from the community to provide some additional time. So, and also I had a request from one of the property owners in the commercial industrial area regarding the commercial and Glen Highway access. So as you know now, when you go south on the Glen, you cannot turn left onto commercial to go down like to MTA, MEA, et cetera. And I was in contact with the commissioner, and he has replied that that is a complaint they get most often with the upgrades similar to this, but there's nothing they're going to change regarding it. So just so in case any of you do get a request from somebody, that's where we are. I did on Saturday meet with Representative Johnson for an extended period of time, just bringing her up to date on what's going on in the city, and also with Senator Hughes, just talking about when we might get our money. And of course, you know now that the legislature has loosened the purse strings, and so that money should be coming. And we will, of course, be looking at the criteria for the disbursement of that. And exactly what we can and cannot do. So those will be decisions, and maybe some of those decisions will be on the agenda for May 26th, just depending how quickly we get the check and how quickly we can review. And on the back of my report, you see the letter that I sent to our sister city regarding postponing our July 2020 visit to July of 2021. That was a request of theirs. We were sort of waiting for them to make the request because of their culture. We felt that if we would go ahead and step forward and make the request, that that might be a little bit inappropriate. And so we waited until the mayor sent me a letter asking for the postponement. And Carla was very nice. You got the English copy in your packet. There was also a Japanese copy, and that went to the mayor. So he got both an English and a Japanese letter from us. And I believe Carla sent out to all of the delegation a copy of this email also. So everybody from the delegation should now know what is going on. And of course, I asked Norma, and she did send out to all of the council members also, so we would know. So any questions about any of that? Okay. And is Mike on? Okay. Well, the only problem is I didn't bring the older Americans one, and I should bring that and we'll read it to her. Yeah, that would be good. And Julie, I will put this in your mailbox, but this is a proclamation proclaiming May 2020, it's supposed to be. As Palmer Bike Month, and I'll go ahead and read this. Whereas the bicycle is a healthy, convenient, financially and economically and environmentally sound form of transportation and an excellent tool for recreation and enjoyment of the city of Palmer's scenic beauty, local attractions, and friendly neighborhoods. Whereas throughout the month of May, the residents of Palmer and its visitors will experience the joy of bicycling by simply getting out and going for a ride. And especially now, we've seen a lot of them out. So, whereas the city of Palmer's road and trail system attracts bicyclists each year, providing economic health, transportation, tourism, and scenic benefits. And whereas creating a bicycle-friendly community has been to improve citizens' health, well-being, and quality of life, growing the economy of Palmer, attracting tourist dollars, improving traffic safety, supporting student health and learning, and reducing pollution, congestion, and wear and tear on our streets and roads. Now it is therefore proclaimed that myself as mayor and the city council of the city of Palmer do recognize May 2020 as Palmer Bike Month, encouraging residents to bike for a healthy living. And so, Julie, I'll put that in your box. And then we also have a proclamation for May to be Older Americans Month. And thank you. And so I'll go ahead and read that one into the record also. That one I have, Linda, I don't know if you want to take it. I have it in my vehicle, or are they open at the seniors at all for me to drop it off over there, Linda?
There's distribution from outside. Most mornings.
Okay,
A couple of board members are making sure that the commodities that they receive every day from cars are available. People just walk up and pick up. So I was unable to attend yesterday's meeting where they were going to discuss with appropriate distancing, etc., because I was at the hospital. So I'm not real sure what day they may start that, but I'd be happy to take it, and at a minimum, we'll make sure it gets hung up on the wall next to the previous ones.
okay,
I have the one from the governor.
okay, good. All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Okay, this one is, whereas the city of Palmer includes older Americans who richly contribute to our community, and whereas we acknowledge that what it means to age has changed and for the better, and whereas the city of Palmer is committed to supporting older adults as they take charge of their health, explore new opportunities and activities, and focus on independence. And whereas the city of Palmer can provide opportunities to enrich the lives of individuals of all ages by involving older adults in redefinition of aging in our community, promoting home and community-based services that support independent living, encouraging older adults to speak up for themselves and others, providing opportunities for older adults to share their experiences. And now it is therefore proclaimed by Mayor, myself, and the City of Palmer City Council do recognize May 2020 as Older Americans Month in Palmer, and encourage citizens to acknowledge older adults and the people who serve them as influential and vital parts of our community. So I will put those two in both of your boxes. And I think, no, and Mike is on the phone. Thank you. Is there any questions on any part of my report or anything that you have questions about? Okay. And for City Attorney, Mike, I understand you're on the phone.
Yes, Madam Mayor, nothing to report at this moment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions to the City Attorney? Okay. The next item on our agenda is audience participation. Anyone in the audience is welcome to address the council. 3 minutes if you're an individual, and 5 minutes if you're representing a group. And we do have one person online that will be participating in audience participation. So, okay, all righty. Margot, we'll go to you then. Welcome to City of Palmer Council meeting, and the clerk will unmute you here in a minute, and then if you want to go ahead and make your presentation.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm having fun with Zooming. Hi. Thank you so much, Mayor DeVries and the City Council, for allowing me to participate in tonight's meeting. It's exciting. My name is Margot Jones. I'm a board member of the Sunshine Community Health Center, and I have exciting news about a new service coming to our community here in the Palmer-Wasilla area. The Sunshine Community Health Center in Talkeetna and Willow is excited to be opening a new clinic in Wasilla at the end of this December. Located at the corner is at Bogart and Cruzy. It's in the part of the Old Valley Hospital. It's across from the high school. It's a great facility. We believe that there is a definite need for this because the Mat-Su Borough has a population of about 106,000 people, and about 34,000 of those folks are uninsured or underserved in the Mat-Su Valley at this time. And with the COVID-19 stuff going on, could be way more. The Sunshine Clinic is a federally qualified community health center primarily funded by the federal government by a program called HRSA, which is Health Resources and Services Administration. And the Sunshine Clinic accepts all insurances, yay, and offers a discounted fee for those who fall under certain federal guidelines. They accept Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Insurance, Denali, Kid Care. Everything is accepted and will take care of everybody. We see this as a win-win for both Lower Mat-Su Valley, but also our patients in Upper Sioux Valley, where services are limited and patients often have to go down to Anchorage to get the medical care that they need. The Sunshine Clinic will be hiring employees for the new office, which is expected to open at the end of December 2020 in Wasilla. Our board and leadership team of the Sunshine Clinic also have a vision of someday opening a training center to grow our own service provider. And I mean, we're really excited about this, and it's still a go. Everything's on board. And if you have any questions, I'll see what I can do.
Okay. So does any of the council have any questions? They had, normally we sometimes have these presentations under presentations to the city council, and it's listed as a separate event. But we just, they just inquired after we had posted the agenda, so we just asked them if they wanted to do it under audience participation, which means they could, you know, have it much sooner than the end of May. So that is the reason that it was given tonight. So any questions or comments? Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Councilwoman Valerius?
What sort of providers do you have at this?
We're going to have a lot. We're going to complement the Willow and Talkeetna ones and have our own providers. We'll have doctors, PAs, RNs, dentists, behavioral health, the addiction things. There's dermatologists. They've got a bunch. Some of them that now serve both Willow and Talkeetna. We will have them on more full-time with this clinic. Does that work? We're going to have some people. Yeah.
Okay, all righty. Well, thank you again for bringing this to our attention, and thank you for appearing and giving us information. So have a good evening.
And you, sorry I couldn't be there, the dang truck.
No problem. No problem. This works out fine. Thank you. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. Okay, now I'll bring audience participation. Go ahead, Eugene. I don't know. Do you want people to see you?
Well, I don't have.
Okay. All right. Let's see where you at. There you
And
are.
I brought my wife too.
Your name now is Norma Alley. You see that?
No. That's fake news. No. Okay. Okay, Lisa, can you hear me through this mic, this mask? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I live in the Mat-Su Valley. Follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in the public interest. I looked over your agenda, scrutinized it, and there's two items in there of concern. One is dealing with the vote by mail scenario agreement with Resource Data, and I couldn't help but notice these words. Dear Ms. Alley, since 2016, Resource Data has successfully supported Municipality of Anchorage in establishing a vote by mail program and carrying out vote by mail elections. As you know, since 2012, I've been monitoring the elections in Anchorage. and 9 elections, and every one I've declared illegitimate. And more so with this most recent one, because of the World Health Emergency, they were totally in contempt. And if you're working on a contract and signing an agreement with them, all those elections were illegitimate. You could ignore me, which is normally what you do, but the fact is they've had 9 elections. And the fact is it's not worked well. Now, not all of them were the scenario with the machinery and there was millions of dollars spent. It was the last 3 years, approximately, that they've had elections dealing with all that equipment and all that. But the fact is, they've escaped and now doing analysis of showing that there was significant, and when I say they, I'm talking about the municipality of Anchorage with respect, identifying that there was greater voter turnout before they went with all that machinery and forced people to go this way versus that way. So, and I'll leave you with that. So, number one, it should have been a public hearing item and not slide through this way and a chance for the public to see, introduce it for public hearing, and next. But you've got it on the agenda where this is the only chance for me to address the comment. The other one is the public safety deal, dispatch center. Boy, this has been an interesting night for me. I didn't expect these two to fly. But the fact is, this should have been a public hearing. Now, you see an agreement where you're going to give consent to so-and-so, the borough manager, the city manager, to execute the agreement. Well, whatever agreement is, you need to have it before as a public hearing, and the public to see it, and then introduce it at one meeting, and in another meeting, the public has a chance to review it. This looks really interesting, and how much information out there in the public is aware of what's going on. But in this meeting, I'm sitting here with approximately 11, 12 people. With all the respect with this World Health Emergency, I'm the only one wearing a face covering. And many from the state are in this room, and they're not complying with the governor's order to wear a face covering. So with all the respect, what's going on? Are we going to comply with the World Health Emergency and the governor's directive, or are we just going to do business as usual? My time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like that clock.
Mayor DeVries, I do have an email that was specifically requested by a citizen to have read into the record.
Okay,
So when
sure,
the time
okay.
comes, I do want to let you know that I have that.
Right.
Well, I'll leave it up to the mayor to decide the order. I just want to make sure you knew that so that
Okay.
we have that before end of participation.
Okay, that
Okay,
sounds perfect.
Perfect,
All
yeah.
right.
So this was received from David and Andrea Fuller on Tuesday, May 12th, 2020 at 3:47 p.m. And it says, Madam Mayor and City Council, I wish I could be there tonight, but I have a virtual graduation and festivity to attend. This year, citizens of Palmer have become aware of an incident that occurred around the beginning of January of Councilman Richard W. Best requesting the Palmer Police Department dispatch a patrol car to his residence, download a song, and have it played over the public address system. Since that time, Councilman Best has demonstrated a laissez-faire, I haven't seen that word in a while, attitude of the incident and has ignored attendance requirements during critical meetings. When confronted with these shenanigans, the majority of the council and mayor turned a blind eye to the behavior and refused to address it. This has resulted in so far one recall petition being submitted and refused and another being drafted up as we speak. With all of this being said, I would ask that the council move forward and develop a code of ethics as well as roles and responsibilities for the mayor and council members to adhere to. As it stands currently, there is no language in the city code or charter that spell out what an elected official is responsible for or to what standard of behavior they are expected to demonstrate to the public. On the whole, I would feel that the council committing itself to a code of ethics and a standard of behavior would make leaps and bounds in restoring the public's trust in this body as well as deter future incidents of impropriety. You have an opportunity to enhance this body for the better. Will you take it? Thank you for your time, David K. Fuller. And he does provide his address of 217 South Cobb, Palmer, Alaska, 99645.
Okay, thank you. All right. Go ahead.
Can I have 5 minutes, please?
Mayor.
Yes, yes, you may.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Ailish Van from the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce. I am here tonight to just talk about a couple things, just to kind of echo what City Manager Hanson said about Cleanup Day. The chamber was only a part of Cleanup Day itself, but it was, we did get a lot of trash, despite there being way fewer people and no barbecue, which is usually an incentive for folks. But I was actually pretty impressed with how much trash ended up in the dumpster based on the amount of people that we have. So this was my 11th Cleanup Day. I can tell you the weather was some of the best I've ever had, so I was happy for that. And it's been fun over the last 11 years to see the same kids coming out every year to pick up trash, and they just keep getting taller and bigger. And anyway, it was just, I love Cleanup Day just because of that, because it's something that, the same people come out and enjoy doing. So family traditions sort of thing. So another thing before I forget, Norma, June 3rd, we have Lieutenant Governor Meyer speaking for our chamber coffee chat about election security. So everyone is welcome to attend. It will be done virtually via Zoom. So that goes out in our newsletter every Tuesday with the link to register. So that'll be June 3rd, which is what we had scheduled. I just confirmed with them today that he will be doing that virtually. So yes, if you want to share that with your clerk friends, yes. And I just wanted to also speak about the Cash Mob community grant that you guys will be looking at later this evening. We will be working on our third virtual Cash Mob next week, the fourth Thursday.
Next week's just the 3rd.
No. Okay.
Well, I think it is the 4th, but we have 5 Thursdays this
Oh, we have
month.
5 Thursdays. Okay, so we'll be working on the next virtual Cash Mob. So we've done 2, and they've both been very successful. It's been a really great way for people to see a business that they might not have seen otherwise, and also get to spend money and see people, if you will, via Facebook. And the last one we did was at Alaska Picker, which was a really great time. We had a really good feedback on it. So we would really appreciate the consideration for the council grant of $500 just to help offset the cost. We try to have prizes and encourage people to come and spend money and all that good stuff. So that'll help us buy prizes and also get the word out about the event to hopefully have more and more people. But we had, I want to say, close to 3,000 or 4,000 people watched the video that we did, so that was pretty cool. So they have a pretty substantial impact, whether that impact is that night or later down the road. At least they've seen the business. There's a video out there proving it. So, and I also wanted to, I'm sure most of you have heard by now, but we did make the decision on Friday to cancel Colony Days 2020, which is a very, very tough decision for us. But based on requirements and logistics and liabilities, we just could not see how my staff of myself and my halftime person could do it with everything that is required right now. We are working on doing something else, maybe that weekend, or something to continue to encourage people to come to town to our beautiful Palmer. So I just wanted you all to know that if you hadn't seen it on Facebook or our website or in our email, that I would come and tell you in person that we did make that very challenging decision. Right now we are planning on having the Midsummer Garden and Art Fair, which will be on July 11th, and our golf tournament, which is on July 10th, which is also the same day as the Palmer Wine Walk. So that will be a very fun day in Palmer, which the Wine Walk is still planning on happening as well. We had a meeting about that yesterday too with the museum. So, so that is my update. I just appreciate everything you guys do, and yes, thank you. I have time to spare. So thank you all so much, and hopefully we'll get to see you in person soon.
Thank you for your update. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes? Mm-hmm. Yeah, give her 5 representing group. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council, and the Commissioner for the Department of Public Safety. I am here for a very simple reason, and it is just to extend a tremendous heartfelt thanks to the City of Palmer. The Department of Public Safety has been working very closely with City Manager Hanson, and we are very, very thankful that the council is willing to hear and take action potentially on a piece of new business that you're going to hear next in your agenda. Behind me in the room, and it is a slight show of force. We wanted to be very respectful of the social distancing, but also in the room with me is Colonel Barlow. To his right is Mr. Bill Doolittle, who is an expert on telecommunications, and to his right is Major Bern Chastain. The project that we are attempting to achieve will improve dispatch services throughout Alaska while maintaining the exceptional service that the citizens of Palmer already receive. We are very thankful that Palmer is willing to engage in this conversation with us because there are many, many locations throughout Alaska in which if someone dials 911, if the first words out of their mouth is not their location, when they are disconnected, we have absolutely no way of getting to them. This is particularly critical due to the elements that we face in weather and the search and rescues that we respond to. We will be able to save lives if we can achieve the scope of project that we are working towards, and this partnership is a huge component of our capacity to do that. Again, it will continue to allow the citizens of Palmer to receive the exact same service that they have. It'll just allow the Department of Public Safety to use the funding that we have available to expand the service and really save lives that we're not able to do. This is a technology that all of America has access to. So Alaska is quite a bit behind. And we're very, very thankful that Palmer is considering this partnership. And we also have every opportunity to answer any and all questions as they relate to the technology or infrastructure or other that council members might have. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and for everything that Palmer's been willing to do to converse with us about this project.
Thank you. Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council, either on an item that's on the agenda or anything you'd like to bring to the council's attention? Okay, seeing no one else, I will close audience participation.
I'll bring it to you.
And I'll go ahead and just leave I don't know if we will have, because we have some public hearings, so we'll leave the camera that way, so in case somebody comes and testifies for the public hearing. So, council, did all of you hear that? So, in case somebody comes and testifies for the public hearings we're going to have, we'll leave the camera there so you can see them as they testify. So the next item on our agenda is Resolution 20-0110, submitting the question of amending Charter Section 3.2, Terms of Office to limit mayor and council terms to the city's qualified voters at the October 6, 2020 City of Palmer election. Does anyone need a staff report before I open the public hearing? Okay, so with that, I will open public hearing on Resolution 20-010. And for this testimony, you are to keep your testimony to that resolution, please. Okay, anyone that would like to testify? Okay, go ahead, sir.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I live in the Metsu Valley. Follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more likely in public interest. Looking on this item, I see two things that strike out. I always look at this part. It says public hearing date, March 24th. And then did you cancel? Didn't you reschedule that? Am I looking at something wrong here? You had one public hearing on this one. The other one, you didn't have a public hearing. It was postponed, the one that's following. Okay. So you already had a public hearing on this item. Okay, fine.
No.
Huh?
No.
Yeah, March 24th, we had a public
Okay,
hearing on this
fine.
item.
And the other one you didn't. Okay, fine. First of all, this item has, your proposals go on the election. Your election's not until October. Right now, we're in a world health emergency. Right now, people are distant. I would strongly encourage you not to close public hearing tonight, to continue public hearing. You have plenty of time to appropriately, if you decide to put it on the calendar for the October, to get it out and to get the public aware of, debate that issue, whether they want to vote yes or no on the item. But this is not the time to do it in this way. And a whole month would maybe a significant deal of holding it off for a full month, because that would allow June, you're hearing more people can attend meetings and so forth. We're hearing that out there. The Borough Assembly still has few people that can attend their meetings. I'm the one. And as you can see, I'm the one in this room. But the fact is, and this, on the title, this ordinance is dealing with term limits. That's what it's all about. I'm not saying I'm for or against term limits, okay, with respect. You know I have to be neutral. At least that's been my position for years. But I do believe you need a fair chance for the public to engage with the government before they make a decision. And you need to have that discussion. But we're in a world health emergency. We're in a situation where public has to be remote. Council members have to be remote. This is not a normal situation. With all due respect, I strongly encourage you not to close public hearing and to continue public hearing for another opportunity. Thank you with, 38 seconds to spare. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I like that clock.
Anyone else in the audience that would like to address the council on Resolution 20-010? Does the council have any objections to me closing the public hearing? And I can't see any of you, so. Okay, anybody have any objections? Everybody's fine? Okay. With that, I'll close the public hearing on Resolution 20-010. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor, I move to approve. Councilwoman Combs.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
This is Councilmember Valerius. I'll second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we approve Resolution 20-010, submitting the question of amending the charter for terms of office to limit mayor and council terms. Discussion, questions, amendments to the motion from the council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Sabrina
No,
Combs.
this is Councilwoman Combs again. Thank you. I'd like to make an amendment to change
You're
the amount of
coming,
term.
we can barely hear you inside the council chambers, madam.
I'm sorry. I'd like to make an amendment to change the number of terms from 2 to 3 3-year terms for council members as well as mayor.
Okay, so on page 70, you're making an amendment for they may not serve for more than 3 consecutive terms, is that correct? And then I would be no member of the council shall serve for more than, you still want to leave it 4 consecutive terms?
No, it would change to 6.
I'm sorry,
3 as council member and 3 as mayor.
I'm sorry, clerk, did you hear what she said?
Yeah, she'd like to change that to 6 consecutive terms so that it allows for 3 years as a council member.
And 3 as mayor?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. And it's just those 2, Councilwoman, just change the 2 to 3 and the 4 to 6. Is that the only 2 changes?
Yes.
You're making them?
I believe it was something we had talked about in committee of a whole and had agreed that it was a better decision.
Okay, all righty. Is there a second to that amendment?
Madam Mayor, this is Councilwoman Burbrick. I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. So now the discussion will just be on the amendment. Discussion from the council on the amendment to change the 2 to 3 and the 4 to 6. Any discussion, questions? Everybody understands on the council side? Okay, I don't see any hands. I don't see any waves. Okay. So, Madam Clerk, are you okay are you checking something before we vote?
I did. I was checking to make sure that it read correctly, as it had been mentioned.
Okay.
That sometimes when we put these ballot measures together, especially when it comes to charter amendments,
Right.
there's a lot that goes into that. So I just wanted to read it, then I was reading it out loud, to make sure that even though it seems simple to just change those years, that it still was concurrent with everything that needed to be. So
Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, I would
Following
like to
that.
ask Mike, the way it's presented we did find that that was substantially similar to the proposed referendum that may or may not be circulating. Mike, do you feel that this still follows that, or would that put that substantial similarization into question?
Madam Mayor, thank you. I don't think it would change the outcome of my opinion with regard to the proposal before you on the term limits. I think the idea is that the general idea of this is term limits, and the other piece of it, the 2 or 3 years, is just a small component of it and doesn't detract from the basic idea that this is a term limit provision to present to the voters.
Okay, all right. Thank you. I just wanted to be sure as well as to have that on the record in case there was a question. Okay? Thank you, sir. Any other questions from any of the other council members? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready. Would you take the roll then, please?
Yes, thank you. So this is a motion on the floor that I'm taking a roll that a yes vote is amending the main motion, which there was a main motion on the floor.
Right.
Didn't get a noted on the agenda, but there was one made already on
Oh,
March,
okay.
our March meeting.
We didn't have it
March 24th.
in Martin.
So
I'm sorry, Madam Mayor. The public hearing was postponed in March. The only records I'm showing that I've kept, unless I've totally lost a file, is I'm not finding anything for March 24th. I guess my first question is, are we just voting on the amendment at this time? Okay.
Second, and then as we got discussing whether that was going to be substantially similar to the referendum, Mike was not able to or not ready to make an opinion that night for us, and so then we postponed it to a time when it was convenient for the clerk, and so, yeah. So then Mike gave us the opinion, and then I asked to have it put on this agenda. So that's my recollection. Is that the clerk says that's true. So, okay. So any other questions before we go to vote just on the amendment? Okay, go ahead, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Jill Valerius. Councilmember Sabrina Combs.
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington.
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best.
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs.
Yes.
And Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. So now the motion before you is to approve Resolution 20-010 as amended. Any further amendments, questions, comments, or discussion from the council?
Madam Mayor, this is the Deputy Mayor.
Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
I'm not 100% clear on what we were looking for. What was supposed to be being considered was the consecutive years to serve, how many consecutive years to wait before serving again, and then the date that the term limits become effective. I'm not real clear on that. When it becomes effective, and how does prior service, how is that affected at the same time?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Okay, so the questions, I'm going to try to remember what you had. So number 3 question is, when does it go into effect? When do the actual term limits go into effect? This is a ballot measure because it is a charter amendment, therefore it will go before the voters if approved in October. The resolution takes effect immediately, but the actual change in term limits will be determined if the electorate says, yes, we want them, and it is approved, then in 2021, anyone whose name is on the 2021 ballot, the term limits go into effect for them, and the first term starts ticking then for 2021. The 7 council members who are sitting here tonight, the term limits do not count until your name is back on the ballot at the time that your term ends. So all of your service, your prior year's service, will not count towards the term limit years until you are voted in after 2021. Does that answer that, Deputy Mayor Combs? Okay.
The question would be, within the resolution itself, in the third whereas, to me, it's a little confusing when it talks about serving consecutively as a council member and mayor. Using the word "and" consistently to me befuddle, kind of makes it muddied instead of using "or."
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else feels that way or not, but to me it did for sure. So
that's a great question that I think is very important to clarify as well, because the difference between an and an or is important, and it is specifically an and, because what this does is it is stating that the total 6 consecutive terms is added for service as a council member and the mayor. So you can serve 3 terms as a council member, and then you can choose to serve 3 years as a mayor.
3 terms.
3 terms. Thank you. That's very important. I have heard terms and years interchanged, but they mean very different. So 3 years as a council member, 3 years as a mayor, and then 3 terms, and then you need to take a break. So the and is important because it means that you cannot serve more than 6 terms without a break if you choose to go from a council member to a mayor, or from a mayor to a council member.
okay.
So you can choose, another type of thing to help just add more to the math, is you can choose to serve 3 years as a council member and then say, I do not want to serve as mayor. You have to have a year break.
Okay, that's understandable.
Okay.
And Deputy Mayor, if I can just interrupt, that whole paragraph then needs to reflect the amendment also. We need to change, and if you need to have an amendment to that, or is that just something the clerk can do that? Okay.
Yep.
Alrighty, just so everybody understands that third whereas will reflect the amendment we just made. Is everybody okay there on that same page?
Okay.
All right, and then did you have further questions?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Anyone
Madam Mayor?
else from the council have questions?
Councilmember
Madam Mayor?
West.
Oh, yes. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have struggled with this one, and part of the issue that I have is that we're putting truly 2 questions compounded into one before the electorate, and just like the deputy mayor had spoke, the confusion in the whereas, and then the language in the terms of office. I think it would be simpler if we were to divide this into 2 separate resolutions and 2 separate questions to the voters. One being term limits of the mayor with the number of years that we have determined to be for the mayor, and then 1 question and resolution for the council and the term limits of whatever number that we have chosen. And then we don't even have to have the language in there of the consecutive terms and how that confusion and ands, like if the council will indulge me to just have this like how it would read. A person serving as a council member may not serve more than 3 consecutive full terms without a break in service for at least 1 full year. Years of service of an appointee filling a vacant seat does not count towards the total term limits. And then you would have the subsequent same language. That way we would be taking out all the consecutive terms as mayor and council members without a break of service of at least 1 full year. We'd take out all that confusion, and it would just simply be a vote of the people on years of service to be able to be on a mayor and 1 to be as council, and we would just let it go to the voters like that. I'm leaning towards asking for us to divide the question into a resolution number 20010A, mayor, and then 201B for council, and having basically the same language, but taking out that confusing sentence or 2 sentences in between. And I'm posing this as just kind of a question out there so we have the discussion before an amendment would be made.
Okay. So any of the council want to chime in before he decides whether he wants to make that as an amendment to this resolution or not? Thoughts, input from the council? Does everybody fully understand? There would be 2 questions that would go on the ballot. One would be for the terms for the council, and then the second question would be the terms for the mayor's position. Councilwoman Spring Combs?
Thank you. Madam Mayor, I just council what would happen in a scenario if one of those passes and the other doesn't?
That would be the rule of law then. Yeah, so you could end up having council limitation of terms or mayor's limitation of terms or none for both of them. So, yeah, it could easily happen that way. But really our history, I think outside of George Cartier, I don't think there's probably been a mayor that served more than 2 terms.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So, and I know that doesn't, say what's going to happen in the future, but I'm just making that comment. So. Oh, okay, excellent.
It does talk about the. Thank you. I would like to ask the mayor, if I may, to get the legal opinion on that, because in that opinion, it was the terms were not substantially. They are similar enough, but if you start changing positions and dividing this question, you are dividing the initiative petition that is out there currently, and it may not be substantially similar enough now.
Excellent point.
So,
okay. So Mike, did you hear? Have you been following us, sir?
And I think that's a sound point to raise, and I think the most prudent approach to this measure is to keep it as close as possible to the initiative application that's currently circulating, and I guess the petition is the application stage. So the other point that I have is if we do break it up into 2, we might consider having to republish a new ordinance and propositions so the public could weigh in on the revised proposal.
So,
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Councilman Best. Go ahead, sir.
If I may ask the attorney, if there is substantial differences between what council passes and what the petitioner has submitted, it would still be up to the petitioner to choose to move forward with collection of signatures if they felt that it was truly not their intent, but they could potentially not go forward with that petition, correct?
Well, Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you. What typically happens under our code is that if the council adopts a substantially similar measure to that of the initiative, then the initiative is void and it doesn't go forward at all.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, sir. Follow up?
if you don't mind, you didn't really answer my question. My question was whether or not the petitioner would be able to not go forward with the collection of signatures if this was to pass with us dividing this question, and the petitioner looks at it and sees that in their mind, potentially, the intent was achieved, and then they could choose to not go forward with it to go to the ballot, correct?
Yes, that's my understanding, right? Mike,
But,
right?
well,
He does not.
I,
Go ahead, Mike.
no, go ahead, Mayor. I'll wait to hear what you say.
I was just going to say, yeah, the petitioner at any time can decide to, not continue with his petition or to continue it no matter what we do. And then if he goes ahead and presents it and then, Mike, it would be up to you at that time from whatever the council decides, whether we decide on 20-10 or whether we would decide on, 20-10A and B, then you would need to render an opinion on that. And if they were not substantial, then all three questions, I guess, then would go towards to the ballot. The one from the councils with the council terms and the mayor terms, 2 questions, and the petitioner's referendum, if he kept or if they kept it together as it has been presented. Is that true, Mike?
Well, I think that wouldn't be a good idea. I think that the idea is to pass this is not to have sort of dueling ballot propositions on the question in order to avoid having these competing questions there. And I know that last time at the council, there was a preliminary assessment that the ballot proposition getting the most votes would prevail, but there would be separate ballot propositions that would individually potentially pass. So, to me, if the council is adopting a substantially similar measure, the cleanest approach from a legal perspective is, and the clear law on that, the black letter law is, the initiative is, the citizen initiative is taken off the ballot, and the council ballot proposition is presented for the voters to adopt or not, depending on their discretion.
Right.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. If I might address the attorney. Mike, are you saying that if we pass, let's say we pass as it is right now, that for sure the other one from the petitioner would not go forward to the ballot?
That's my opinion, yes.
And if the petitioner disagrees, we still have a potential of having them both on the ballot?
Mike,
Well, no,
Mike,
I don't
can I
think
clarify
so. I mean,
something and ask a question on that? Is that
Sure.
okay, Mike? Can I jump in really fast? I
Yeah,
believe,
sure.
because our code states that the initiative petition comes before the council for consideration after the petition has been certified, and the council can adopt something of substantially similar.
Okay.
So, Mike, what I think to kind of help is that there would be no competing ballot measure. The fact is that we have an active petition that is certified and circulating at this time. If the council adopts this resolution as it stands right now, because it is substantially similar, it would supersede the petition. If the council chooses to adopt something else that is not substantially similar, the petition has the superseding because its time has been certified. The petition has been certified. They have been circulating before this resolution was adopted or any future. So if he turns in the books, and he has until July 2nd, it is certified. his ballot measure would go before, not the council's ballot measure, if it is not substantially similar. So there's two things going on there. Substantially similar, council's takes precedence, or yes, supersedes. If it is not substantially similar, the petition was already issued, this is after the fact, the petition would go before and be the ballot measure. So again, we have two, you can move forward with resolution 10, or we kind of play the waiting game and see what he does. July 2nd's the deadline. That does leave us July 14th, July 28th, before a ballot measure has to be approved to get on the ballot. Not that I love postponements, but
Right.
I'm just letting y'all know the option. So Mike, am I understanding and interpreting the code right about that substantially similar and how one would supersede the other?
If the council adopts, it's very simple. If the council adopts a substantially similar measure to that of the ballot proposition based on the principles of law outlined in the opinion that accompanies the document, then the citizen initiative that's been the application that's been approved and the petition that's circulating is no longer viable and does not go on the ballot. And instead, the ballot proposition adopted by the council would go on the ballot, and that would be what the voters would consider. And we've looked at this particular one, and we've concluded that it's substantially similar, thereby assuming council adoption would supersede the citizen initiative that's currently circulating.
Okay. Further questions from council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
I will move to divide this into two separate resolutions, 20010, term of office to limit mayor terms, and 20010B, terms of office to limit council member terms, with the same other language except for the no council member of the council shall serve more than 4 consecutive terms as the mayor and council member without a break in service for at least 1 full year. That would be my amendment, and I'll speak to it after.
Is there a second to that amendment?
I'll second that. This is Steve.
Thank you. Let me ask, before we go into discussion, is not worrying about the petition that's out there, et cetera, would there need to be these two separate resolutions, A and B, come back then for another public hearing? And an introduction and another public hearing, right? Or no?
I believe because of the matter, right?
Research it.
The matter of this being, ballot measure, that it would be one of those things that do need to come back for another public hearing. We are talking two separate issues, allowing the public the opportunity to speak on the issues separately. We're dividing the question.
Okay. Already, and go ahead, address your amendment.
Yeah. It's not actually addressing my amendment. That was kind of inferred over to the clerk to get her opinion on. This is same resolution with the same code language. It's just separating because of the conflict of and confusion language, and actually trying to make it more clear so that the voters are choosing if they want limits on a mayor and council member, versus we were actually having this language that has come before us where it's combining the two as though they are like seats, and then having one amongst the two like seats, and they're not like seats.
Okay.
And so I have an opinion. Go ahead. Sorry.
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
I
go
think then maybe I misunderstood the division of the question. I understand that he's separating the terms, the division of the question on the floor right now is separating the terms from council and mayor.
Right.
What I think then I'm getting confused on is he changing the terms and the break point? Because if we have a resolution just for the council, that is 3 consecutive full terms without a break. And we have a separate one for the mayor that is 3 consecutive full terms without a break. But what we're not addressing is that full limit.
To be able to go from one to the other.
That's right. So therefore, they are separate, that they do not equal the same thing. These are 2 different types of term limits being put on the floor.
Madam Mayor.
So, but if we can get clarification on that, I think that would help me understand a little more.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
If I may, and I appreciate the council allowing for this robust discussion. In our first amendment that was passed by Councilwoman Combs, we increased the years from 2 to 3 for the individual positions of mayor or council, and then we also increased the consecutive number to equal both of those. And so you wouldn't have to have a break.
I think I follow
Madam
what
Mayor?
he's saying, and I agree with him.
Yeah.
Okay,
But does that, Madam Mayor?
Deputy Mayor
Best is saying, but does that then still, because of that understanding, does that not say that we should not divide the question? In that we've addressed that they're each one separate, but that they can be consecutive.
I believe what I'm hearing her say, Deputy Mayor Combs say, is dividing the question didn't make any change, therefore why divide the question?
Right, yeah. I don't know. Councilman Best, I thought maybe thought it might be more clear to the voters, or maybe he wants a separate vote on the mayor versus council.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
I think discussion is proving that this is creating confusion rather than solving it.
Will somebody
Keeping them together
mute
show that
themselves?
it's,
Okay.
I believe Linda is
Somebody's
not muted on Zoom.
Okay.
Madam,
Just a minute. I recognize Councilwoman Sabrina Combs, and we're having a
Okay,
problem
I'm sorry.
getting her on muted.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
All right, can you hear me okay?
Okay.
Okay. I don't think we need to split the question. I think it's easy to understand that you can serve 3 terms as a council member and then 3 terms as a mayor, equaling 6 terms without having to take a break. So I don't think there's a need to split it. I think it actually causes more confusion. Thank you.
Okay. And Mike, was that you that had some input?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Uh-huh.
If I may.
Sure.
If you look at Norma's memo, Norma prepared a very good memo, and if you read the last paragraph, it expresses the intent quite clearly as to what the ballot proposition is intended to accomplish. So that memo is actually, when you've adopted this along with the memo, it's the legislative intent to establish the intent of the council in adopting the term limit ballot proposition. And I can read it, but people can read it for themselves. I don't need to recite it.
Okay. I've had a couple of Councilwoman Valerius, were you trying to get my attention at some time? No? No.
Madam Mayor, I was not. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Burberg then. I see a yellow line around your box. Come on verbally. Councilwoman Berberick?
She can't hear. Councilmember Burbrick? Councilmember Burbrick, can you hear us now? The problem, great. So,
I missed what Councilwoman Combs said.
Okay. All right, thank you. Okay, so further.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, then I'll pose this out there. Can anybody explain to me if we change it to, as we have already admitted, to 3 consecutive terms as a council member and 3 consecutive terms of mayor, and then we've added that no council member shall serve more than 6 consecutive terms? What is the sense of as the mayor and council member without a break in service for at least 1 full year?
Madam Mayor?
No member of council shall serve more than 6 consecutive terms as a mayor and a council member without a break in service for at least 1 full year. I'm not understanding why that sentence then is necessary.
Well, because I think they don't want someone to serve 3 consecutive terms to council, go serve 3 consecutive terms to mayor, and then try to go back and run for council person, is what I understand. But Councilwoman Sabrina Combs, I think you were trying to get my attention.
Thank you. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. It's just to clarify that you can do 3 council terms in a row and then 3 mayor terms in a row, and then you need to take a break. You don't have to take a break in between those. It's clarifying that it's 6 consecutive terms is the most you can serve, 3 as council member, 3 as mayor. And having it together helps explain that. If you separate this into 2 separate things, it's going to cause confusion because they're not a cohesive document.
Okay. Any further question on the amendment? The amendment on the floor is to divide the question, have 2 separate resolutions, as well as 2 separate questions on the ballot box. Any further discussion on that amendment? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you go ahead and take the roll?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Make sure I'm muted. Okay. Councilmember Jill Valerius?
No.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
No.
Councilmember Steve Carrington?
Yes.
Councilmember Richard Best?
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Berberich?
No.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
No.
Motion fails.
Alrighty, so now we're back to the main motion as amended with the 3 and 6 consecutive terms. Any further amendments, questions, comments?
Madam Mayor, if I might.
Deputy Mayor,
I've gone back and forth about this one quite a bit, actually. I have nothing against having the term limits. I have had some individuals express to me that they felt that they had been taken out of the process. I mean, other than an advisory vote, there was, a petitioner, and the petitioner's wording, not even, have it run through a group or any kind of public hearings about, okay, what does that mean? What does the term limits mean? That's the only thing that I've been really uneasy with. I feel better about it after the amendment that Councilwoman Combs made because I think that's clearer and closer to the intent. When I looked back historically, as this has been discussed in the past 8 to 10 years, I think the three terms has been a little more, closer to what has been discussed. I still, however, have an uneasiness for 2 reasons. One, it has been expressed to me that they don't feel that there was a public advisory vote, but there was not public input. And number 2, I still feel really strongly if you look at the history in the past 6 to 10 years, I believe with almost no exceptions, maybe only 1 year, we have had someone new elected to the council. Our voters have imposed term limits on our council. We've had the turnover, the opportunity has been there, and it has been seized, and we're all the better for it. So, I just wanted to, once again, just say that I hope that we're not being short-sighted here. But I'm still uneasy when I have individuals calling and they want explanations about who did the wording, how was this and that come up with it. They did not feel that there was. The public was asked if they wanted term limits, but they weren't asked how they wanted them, and I don't feel real comfortable with that. But I appreciate everybody's time and patience with me. Thank you.
Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
Thank you. I would first like to suggest to Deputy Mayor Combs that she have those people that express those concerns show up to the meeting tonight where there is an actual public hearing that they could give that input. Because to say that there isn't an option for them to give input and then they're not here talking about it just doesn't make sense to me. Second, our voters asked us to do this and we're doing it, and that's our job. So this is going to the voters again in October, and they will give their clear decision as to what they want. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, if I might address that.
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'm still, like I said, I've got all my paperwork here. I don't see where we had the opportunity in March, and particularly, frankly, Mr. Haberman is correct on this one. Those were the very early days of lockdowns and confusion over how to do things. I don't see that we have to go any further than that. When I say the lack of public input, it's on how it's worded. Somebody is sitting down and it's their idea of how everything should be worded. It's not going through any kind of oversight. That is what is being questioned. That is, they're saying to them, and frankly, I think the same thing. Where is the input on this? Whether it's the petitioner or it's this one, there's not been an opportunity for our constituency to chime in on it. And it should have. If you say they came tonight, they would get to make a statement, one statement, and they'd be basically rolled over because it was already on the agenda, it was already written by someone else. No matter what they would suggest, the chances of it being changed to that or put off any further are pretty doggone small. So, and again, we've gotten used to it as elected officials doing these kind of meetings this way, but, and I'm really happy if your life hasn't been overly affected, but that's what I'm hearing from most people, and myself included. It's actually harder these days to be able to participate. Not everybody has the...
Madam Mayor, may I?
So that's it. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Okay, let the Deputy Mayor finish. Okay, Councilwoman Valerius?
I agree with what we have before us right now. The voters have made their voice very clear. This package has been posted. This was posted when it was introduced in March. People have had the opportunity to weigh in on this. They've had opportunity to read this. And so the public has had an opportunity to write a resolution, which we have in front of us right now. So I would disagree with the deputy mayor. Like this has been out there, and I feel like we have talked about this another time, and the voters don't. I think that this, to me, feels like we're kicking an issue down the road again, and the voters aren't going to be happy with that either. And that's not what I'm here to do, kick issues down the road. That's what we need to do.
Okay, further comments from council members? We're getting ready to vote on the resolution as amended for the number of terms. Any further questions or comments, amendments by the council? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for the roll.
Thank you. Councilmember Jill Valerius?
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs,
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington. Is that a yes?
I thought it was yes.
Okay.
Was it yes?
Thank you very much. Councilmember Richard Best,
No.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
No.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. I want to beg the councils to let me ask the clerk a question right now. We have some people that are waiting patiently in our council chambers for an item under new business. I don't know, we have already adopted our agenda, but I need to know from the clerk if I can, just need a motion from the council to move item action memorandum 20-040 up under on the next item, and how do I handle that?
You can have a motion since
Okay.
the council did adopt the the agenda. I think that's a fabulous way of doing that.
Okay.
Have a motion to move that item, and then it can you do full
Then
on
we can-
vote or
yeah.
consensus of the council. But
Okay.
Yep,
All right.
that's exactly right.
So do I have any objections from any of the council members to bring up action memorandum 20-040, approving the city manager to negotiate and execute an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Alaska Department of Public Safety for dispatch services into the next item in our agenda? Any of the council members have any? Okay, I see thumbs up and I see head changes. So, okay, so with that, then the next item on the agenda is action memorandum 20-040, approving the city manager to negotiate and execute an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Alaska Department of Public Safety for dispatch services. Does anyone want a staff report before you go into motions and discussion? Okay.
Staff report, please.
Okay, yes, we have it. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, what's before you tonight is to allow me to negotiate and execute a intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Public Safety for dispatch services. On April 20th, the Department of Public Safety approached the city, and we sat down and had an initial meeting about Department of Public Safety assuming the operations of dispatch at the City of Palmer. City of Palmer has operated dispatch since its inception of the police department without interruption. In the past, we have provided service to the Mat-Su Borough for emergency and fire services throughout the borough. In 2017, the Mat-Su Borough decided to go with the contract with MATCOM. And since at that time, we decided that the risk was not worth the reward of going with a different provider. And so we continued to provide our own dispatch service. We invested money in a new radio and console systems in 2018, of which we received a $125,000 grant through Homeland Security. And we are in our final two payments of that lease purchase agreement. So when we evaluated this intergovernmental agreement, we evaluated it really on three levels, and that is the level of service that the City of Palmer currently has from our own dispatch service. We evaluated the difference between having our autonomy and being able to provide our, do our own levels. We evaluated the relationship we would have with the Alaska State Troopers. So some of the important things that we evaluated in that process were, unfortunately, it seems that dispatch is a little fluid, especially in the Mat-Su Borough, with people transferring. There's still a competitive environment for dispatch services, so I think we're all competing, it seems, unfortunately, for that service when it probably should be a different model. However, I won't talk about that. What I will talk about is that we felt it very important that in the event that the Alaska State Troopers, or Department of Public Safety, wish to pursue other opportunities and leave the City of Palmer, that we had an out. We had the ability to reestablish ourselves in the dispatch business with kind of a a lesser degree of transition back in. And so we negotiated with the cooperation of the Department of Public Safety that if, in the event that there was, for whatever reason, a termination of this intergovernmental agreement, that the dispatch equipment would remain at the City of Palmer. So we wouldn't have to make enormous amounts of investment into reestablishing our dispatch center. Further, what we would prefer to do under this agreement is to retain an employee in that position. So not only do we have an interface with the dispatch, but also we have a certain level of expertise that we could go forward with that. Additionally, what we wanted was a minimum of 2-year notice if they decided that they wanted to pursue other alternatives, and the benefit to that is we would have time to reestablish a dispatch service if necessary. As was pointed out by Commissioner Price, the level of service that we will receive will be the same with respect to call taking. So if somebody calls a 911 service, currently it is transferred from Wasilla to the Palmer Dispatch because MATCOM is the primary dispatch service in the state, or in the Matsu borough. So our level of service and how calls get taken at the City of Palmer will not change from what they currently are. Another level that we evaluated this proposal on is our current employees. I think like any organization, I think we take great pride in our employees and believe in them and believe that they offer a tremendous service. Last Wednesday at an employee meeting with Deputy Commissioner Leon Morgan came out, and so did the individual that was going to captain, that was going to be heading up the dispatch division for the troopers, came out, and I think that they were they reinforced the reason why they wanted to get involved with the City of Palmer. It kind of equate this thing is the troopers. The Department of Public Safety wishes to get back in the dispatch center for themselves, and I think they have two alternatives. One is to kind of go out and grow a new dispatch center, or acquire or take an ongoing function that is functional, that's efficient, that knows how to operate. And I think that is one of the things that attracted them to the City of Palmer is that our employees are very good and they're very well respected. And so I think that played a major role in their decision to try to pursue this opportunity. And then, of course, the last part of this equation is what does it financially mean to the City of Palmer, and what's the cost benefit? The cost of us is going to be losing our autonomy over our own dispatch center. The benefit is there's significant savings associated with this intergovernmental agreement. Under this agreement, we would basically lease to the Department of Public Safety our facilities, and additionally, they would acquire through assignment our equipment, okay? And that's perfectly acceptable under the purchasing code, the City of Palmer. Right. The Department of Public Safety is a state agency that we can transfer that equipment to. But so there's significant savings to the city. In your packet, there's a spreadsheet that kind of outlines some of the costs associated with this proposal. And so if we could just quickly go through that, I could show you kind of how we looked at this. So
Let me
first of all,
ask the council if maybe they have some questions.
sure,
or if they
interrupt
fully-
me at any point, please.
Yeah. Council, were you able to understand the financial report there on page 108? Or would you like some further clarification on any one of those items?
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
I did need a clarification. I'm just curious if we can turn the camera back so that we can see the acting city manager talk.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, thank you.
You're not missing anything.
Yeah, there he is. Okay. Yes, Councilman Best?
the manager spoke about a grant that was soon to be come to the end of. Are there any grant assurances that would prohibit this? Not knowing all the grants off the top of my head that we have had over the years, is there any fears that we would be putting the city to be liable for any grant assurance issues?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is one of the things that we considered, and that's why we reached out to Homeland Security and inquired as to what would happen to the status of that grant that, you know, we basically signed those assurances for. And they assured us that if we couldn't sell the equipment, we could transfer it as a part of this agreement to the state for them to use, but we couldn't sell it. So.
Okay. Councilman Best, does that address your inquiry?
Well, you know, it does give me an answer, and as the manager is well aware of where the city has been somewhat timid in these grant assurance conversations, I just want to make sure that we document it, that we get good letters stating that it's okay for us to move forward with that, and I'm sure the attorney will have to have his review of it, but that is something that I am very cognizant of, that when we start talking about any of these grant assurances where the city of Palmer has found kind of sticky wickets at times, but I appreciate that.
Okay.
I would like to follow that up if I could. I'd like to just follow that comment up.
Sure.
So there are a number of moving parts that have to be completed, okay? FCC licensing has to be transferred for some of our radio equipment. We have a lease purchase agreement with Motorola that needs to be assigned to the state. These grant assurances have to be completed. There needs to be a memorandum of agreement with the union that administers the dispatchers. So there are, the retirement and benefits have to weigh in as far as a termination study. So there's a number of things that are going to be done to complete this transaction. And so, and you're right, with the attorney's help, we're going to see, if approved, we're going to see this thing through. So very quickly, if I can run through the financials just to kind of highlight some of the things.
Oh, sure.
So on the first column is the Communications Center 2020 budget.
What page are you on?
I'm on page
108.
108. So the communications budget currently is $1,057,053, of which personnel occupies $873 of that, salaries and benefits combined. Okay, part-time, that's for regular salaries. Part-time salaries and regular overtime, it adds another $70,000 to that. And then you can see the other expenses associated with the dispatch center in general. One thing that you're going to note is that the $49,000 goes away because it becomes a part of the new lease. It's a CAD, it's our CAD system. I think it's our final payment. Okay, and so I'd like to make one correction. Let me add one element to this.
Okay.
Part of this whole agreement is the state trooper lease. Our further contribution to this dispatch contract is to compensate them. We will throw that into the mix as far as that'll be a part of our contribution to this intergovernmental agreement. And so you could see that under the 2021 IGA agreement actuals. I've added the trooper lease back in because it now will be, a loss of revenue, so it's an expense to us under this situation. Okay, and then here is what we provide for maintenance at the trooper building currently. Okay, under this intergovernmental agreement, I would like to make one note that it's 2021, not 2020. On the second to last column, that's it's for next year. It's not for any part of this year. So like I had mentioned, that the proposal is to retain an employee. Okay, that shows you the regular salaries and the regular benefits. The PERS termination study in 15 was estimated at 138,000. We're estimated a little higher. Now, the termination study may come back to say that if you retain a position within that group, then we're not subject to the $180,000 a year. So we don't really know the answer to that question yet. So that's one of those pending issues. So bottom line is we up some of the maintenance that's associated with the dispatch center to better reflect having a tenant in there that's going to require, from what I heard, a window, but that was just the dispatchers talking. So anyways, so those are the costs that would be associated with entering into an intergovernmental agreement. So the difference between what we have budgeted for this year, and it will be higher next year, and a proposed 2021 IGA with the Department of Public Safety, a cost savings of, at a minimum, $640,000 to the city, and that's, 7% of your general fund budget. So that would be the benefit part of the cost.
Okay, any other questions? And what is the council's wishes regarding action memorandum number 20-040?
Madam Mayor?
I apologize if I stepped out of the room. We haven't tested yet. Oh, no, this is an AM, not a public hearing. Apologize, I'm in public hearing mode.
Okay. Yes, okay. Is there a second to Councilwoman Sabrina Combs's motion to adopt?
Madam Mayor, I'll second this.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor to adopt action memorandum 20-040. Comments, questions, amendments from the council?
Yes, Madam Mayor,
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
would the city manager, very well put together presentation, clear, easy to understand. Did you just lose me?
Nope.
Okay.
We see you and we hear you. Thank you.
My screen did some weird things, so I really appreciated the way it was put together, Brad. It was very easy to understand. I did go back and look up a few things, make only a couple of notes, and very well done. Thank you.
I was going to say that our city manager's done very good with the negotiating and getting it, I guess, to me, across the line where it's not really a hostile takeover. This is more of a friendly takeover. He's covered all the bases really well. Because I also pride ourselves in our dispatch service that we've done for so many years. But I could understand that could be acceptable.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you take the roll?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Jill Valerius? Councilmember Sabrina Combs?
Yes.
Councilmember Steve Carrington? Member Richard Best? Councilmember Julie Berberich?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs?
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. Are you all ready to have a brief at ease? So we'll give you, let's see, here it's 8:59, so we come back at 10 minutes after 9. How about that? Okay, thank you.
There he is. Now, and after.
Julie Burbrick has joined.
Two of them, one for our archives and one for.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yep.
Richard Best.
Has joined.
Okay, is everybody back? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and call the City of Palmer May 12th meeting back to order. And thank you again, council, for allowing us to adjust the agenda for those people that had sat here for almost a couple of hours. So anyway, so thank you for that. Now we will go back to public hearings on ordinance number 20-003. Amending Palmer Municipal Code Sections 2.04.031, 2.05.020, and 18.15.010 relating to mayor and council member candidate residency requirements for election. Does any of the council want a staff report before I open the public hearing? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I would appreciate one.
Okay. Alrighty, Madam Clerk, would you give us a staff report, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So ordinance 20-003 is coming before the council because at last year's candidate filing period, it was brought up the difference between the charter stating that we have a 1 year from date of filing requirement as to qualifier to run. And then the code had a date of 1 year from the election date. Now, the charter supersedes the code, and so that's what I had been going by. And the question came up that some of the material in the packet said 1 year from election date, so we're just really trying to get consistency. And then on the committee of the whole that we had, it was directed by the council to move forward with changing this from. Councilmember Burbrick, are you on? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. So then it was directed out of that committee of the whole to move forward with changing the code to match the charter rather than doing a ballot measure and changing the charter to match the code. So that is where we stand today, is this is bringing us uniformity between the two governing records. And it is following the direction that the council gave me to change the code versus the charter.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Any other council members want any questions answered before we go to the public hearing? Okay. So with that, I will open public hearing on ordinance number 20-003. And again, this testimony will just deal with that ordinance, please. Is there anyone from the public that would like to address the city council? Okay.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman. I represent myself, follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like public interest. This item was introduced when? April 14th, in the middle of the World Health Emergency. Public hearing, this is the first one. And you didn't have one before. I'd like to remind you all of my line that I've said over the years. Some may not be aware of it, but most of you have heard it. The more complex and complicated an issue is, the more notice, the more opportunity the public will be heard. And when you're dealing with elections and stuff, that go on the ballot or whatever, you need to get a fair chance. If you're doing changes, like this, you need to give the public a fair chance. There needs to be at least one more public hearing. But I also like to express my concern, respectively, to the statement that was said earlier, because both the other item had similarities of the idea of how you're going to have what on the ballot and who can be eligible to run and so forth. Fact is that the idea that there was been proper notice and all that, and there was a fair chance for the public, let me remind you respectively, this is a world health emergency. Maybe people in this room that left and here don't feel like it's an emergency. Maybe you want to disagree with the governor who's asked that everyone wear covering masks respectively. But the fact is, what do you think was on the minds? You're not in this room. And the public right now is figuring out what's the future. What's the future? Will they have a job? Or will they get a job? Will they be able to go back to work? Are they concerned about this? And also, let me remind you also, one key thing on election, in respect. Your elections are held in October. When the borough decided to move to November, look what happened. There was confusion among the public. People didn't realize that the borough was having a November election. But the November election that we're walking into is also a presidential election. So what I would strongly encourage you, if you're going to do something, is move your elections consistently with Wasilla, Houston, all to November. If you're going to change things, that would be the way to go. But on this item and the other item, you need to do a voter reconsideration on that other item, and you need to stop this right now. Because the public right now is not thinking about this. Most likely they don't even know about this item. They're wondering about their future. Words, how they're going to pay their bills, electric bill and so forth. And that ends my comment with 2 seconds to spare.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to address the council in this public hearing on ordinance 20-003? Okay, does the council have any objections to, would you put the council on for me, please? Does the council have any objections to me closing the public hearing? I don't see any objections, so the public hearing on ordinance 20-003 has been closed. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councilwoman
Move to
Sparrow.
approve.
Okay, is there a second?
Madam Mayor,
Yes,
this is Councilwoman Flores. I'd second that.
okay. Okay, the motion on the floor is to approve ordinance 20-003. Discussion, questions, amendments by the council. Okay. Alrighty, I guess are we ready to vote? Anybody need more time? Okay, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll for the vote, please?
Yes, Councilmember Jill Valerius. Councilmember Sabrina Combs. Councilmember Harrington. Councilmember Richard Best. Councilmember Julie Berberick.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs.
Yes.
Mayor DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda for public hearing is ordinance 20-005, amending the Palmer Municipal Code Section 2.04.160, Council Community Grants. Does anybody want a staff report before I open the public hearing? Okay. So the public hearing on ordinance number 20-005, amending the Palmer Municipal Code concerning community council grants is now open. Anyone that would like to address the council on this matter?
represent myself, follow the public process. When the public process is done appropriately, decision made by the governing body is more like the public interest. I couldn't help but notice when I went through this document, almost every word was crossed out, 80% of the language in that whole thing. That makes me wonder is why so much words are being cut off. Generally you see a 1 or line 2, line 3, line whatever, but it was almost empty of any language for this particular document. That's number one that stood out. Number two is this. There was a line in there that basically said, and toward the end, I don't miss much, as former Mayor Vilbis once said to me in between meetings, boy, you don't miss much. No, he just says, you don't miss a thing. And I say, I disagree with him. I do miss some things, but I generally catch it. The idea is when you want to get a report, let's say you award monies to a party, whoever that party is. Fact is, I see a line in there that says something about oral or written report. And, after the program, to let you know what happened. Well, for one thing, if you're going to release money to parties, especially as an idea to help people out, one would, and I believe in transparency, one would think that there should be a written report along with a verbal report at a council meeting, so that you'll see a written report as part of the packet, the public sees it, you'll allow you to ask any questions, and to see if everything was done right. I'm not saying whoever got the money did something wrong, but I believe in transparency, and I also believe when presentations are given on dealing with monies, and you are talking about awarding monies on A through Z, whatever, the fact is it should be in that kind of language. But that language you got in there gives the exception it could be written or verbal. So I would change that, number one. I'm also concerned is so much language is gone, and why so much language in a document is gone. That leads me to suspect the scenario. And in response to the comment that was said, to remind the party newest member of the council, that's what got me stunned on processing the public to be able to be involved, is that the people are not here. It's not that they don't care. The principal reason, they got something on their mind. It's on the minds of everybody, our future. Okay? And with all due respect, is this being respectful? I would question why so much language in this document was taken out. Where's the explanation for that? Doesn't show it in there. Who did all that editing out? That would be another thing. What parties? And hold it off. Where is the urgency of this thing being approved tonight? To allow it for some answers and presentation. And just close with respect, where's the report from the staff or whatever who did this before the public hearing? And to let you know something the borough really does, which is awesome, is before they have a public hearing, the standard is now, the staff gives a report and then they open the public hearing. That way the public can hear it, not after. And that's an awesome thing they do. I can be very critical, but that's the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to testify on ordinance number 20-005? Okay, does any of the council have objections to closing the public hearing? Okay, so public hearing on ordinance 20-005 is closed. What is the wishes of the council?
Madam Mayor, move to approve.
Okay, is there a second to that motion? Okay, it's been seconded. Discussion, questions, amendments from the council? Councilman Carrington?
All of us would get frustrated. Most of murmuring, I remember hearing voices from a former city manager, because it gave him a lot of work. But I guess I'm curious, since we're at a kind of a transition point, I would be curious to hear from an acting city manager and then even our new manager. So I'm inclined to just reject this and let it stay as it is right now and get some more input on it. So I guess I would be in favor of like tabling it.
Okay. Tabling or postponing, sir, or, because tabling, I think, is effective, almost killing it, right? Is that, I mean, that's the slang for killing, so, but, so.
I can live with that.
Councilwoman Valerius, you had a comment?
Yeah, Madam Mayor, and I don't know if this should just be a discussion point or if I should make a motion or something, but there's a couple of places where initially it basically says event or service. And then like under what are we F1, it just says event, so it should see event or service. 2 should be event or service. So those are, maybe that's just more typographical or error, things like that. But another thing that caught my eye is that under F, so on page, sorry, I put my glasses on, so then of course I can't see. 85.
Oh, 85, okay.
Yeah, at the bottom 11, what got crossed out is that the council shall retain the right to make the final decision on both the overall grant allocation and individual grants. So I'm not sure why that would have been pulled out.
Okay,
Madam
so
Mayor?
on F, and what number of, on page
F,
85? Page 85.
Correct, F11. So way at the bottom of the page.
Oh, okay, all right.
But those were the only things that I caught in there that seemed like there might be some discrepancies.
Right here.
It's addressed in page 84. I think we can get clarification from our city manager.
Okay.
That does mean the same, but that's the implication that it got B. It was duplicate language.
Okay. The clerk has pointed out to me on page 84, Councilwoman, at the top of the page, B, like in boy, a council shall retain the right to make the final decision both on the overall grant allocation and individual grants. I don't know what's the difference between overall grant allocation and individual grants.
That would be, Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yeah, sure.
So that is saying that you have the overall allocation means when you're in your budget process, how much money you want to overall allocate.
Okay.
And then your individual grants is how much you want to allocate to
These
each individual
grants.
grant applicant.
Okay, okay, all right.
Can I add a couple things
Sure,
there?
absolutely.
So one of the goals, I think, sending it to BED was to kind of take a look at the overall program from a number of different perspectives. But, where the conflict arose in this grant program was that it was kind of an economic emphasis, and the commission, the Board of Economic Development felt that it was more than just an economic stimulus for the grant program. It was cultural, it was historical, it was, all those other things that, needed to be considered at the same time. So what we tried to do was go in there and clean up some of the language that was duplicated in the case of this allocation by the council. But we also tried to simplify, what grants were. They're either cash, they're in kind, or there's a combination of them. Because there was so much conflict between an event or an activity or a program or all these other things that was really, it was just such confusing language that was, it ran into the situation in January where you kind of couldn't really decide whether the applicant was eligible to do the grant. So what we did was kind of go in there and say, it's $12,000 is what's allocated to this program this year. I mean, it's incidental to the overall budget. But what this program does is it creates a bunch of community champions around town, doing good things for the community. And it doesn't necessarily provide an economic stimulus sometimes. It provides a program that saves lives up in Hatcher Pass, or, provides meals to to seniors. So, you know, that's more than just an economic program. That's a community program. And so that's why we kind of tried to relabel this thing to what it really was. And, you know, and so ultimately, the council decides on the recipient of a grant. Ultimately, the council decides on the amount of money you put into this program. You know, the last couple months, this program has been working like it's supposed to. Grant comes to you that you feel like it's probably too much for the scale of this program, and you scale it back to what's achievable to be able to, you know, put money into to great programs and create a bunch of winners in the community. So that's what we tried to do, is just really simplify this. With respect to, you know, a report, that's your discretion. If you want a written report, you want a follow-up from the organization, you can request that, or an oral report. You know, a great deal of effort was put on behalf of the last city manager in putting together the packet to be able to present to you. And it really, you know, I think in the big picture, it kind of detracted from his ability to do other functions that were way more significant in the operation of the city. So I'm not going to put words in the mouth of a very capable person, Mr. Wallace, but I think that's kind of some of the emphasis here.
Okay. Any
Madam Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Serena Holmes. Uh-huh.
Just really pleased to see the changes that were made. It did vastly simplify it and gives us a lot more discretion to have discussions and not worry about making sure we're following every nitty-gritty on this. Rather, we can decide what's best for our city. So I actually really like the changes that were made and appreciate the work that was put into it.
Any other questions or comments from council members?
Madam Mayor, excuse me, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I appreciate the explanation from the acting city manager. You know, we got into a bind with some of the grants that had come before us because in some respect, the rules that were there were not being adhered to either by the city manager or the council, even when there was limitations of proximity to the city limits. It became something that was just pushed to the side. And I think that we're in this situation where things became so convoluted because we failed as a council to follow the rules that we had already set forth and had painstakingly gone through. And, you know, anytime that there's loose language and things open for interpretation, that's when things become very difficult to adhere to. I'm in favor of kind of pushing this aside for a little bit. Let's let our incoming city manager take a cut at it, and you know, we can leave the language as it is amended right here, and say come back in August after he's had some time to adjust a little bit and get his 2 cents on the application of this. I would say that there probably are some good changes in here, but there's other aspects that I think, while they were trying to streamline, it just makes it so vague as to why have it at all. Why not just dole out money quarterly or at budget time to any applicant that comes to the city and asks for money? But that's why this program was created, because that's exactly what we had. We had budgetary times where individual groups would stream into the city council chambers and take up hours upon hours asking for the city council to give funds. And so we created this program so that we had a mechanism to put things in little boxes, and then we would be able to have economic stimulus within the city limits. And then we gave a little bit of community area influence and put a boundary of sorts, but we failed as a council to adhere to that. So I'm in favor of postponing this or voting it down.
Okay. Further questions or comments by the council?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Combs, go ahead.
I am in agreement with Councilman Best. Of course, he and myself both were part of the process that developed the program back in the day. So we both remember that while I am totally aware of how much work went into what's being presented to us tonight. There was a heck of a lot of work also went into the way it is. You know, I'm not against the fact that over time there could be some changes, but I would like to again put this aside. I don't think it's something that is an immediate. We know we want to talk about it, but again, I think we have to make sure that there's at least some detail that that gives us a standard that we're being held to. And if it's too ambiguous, that kind of throws us off. First and foremost, the original Board of Economic Development, the original plan was really much more towards economic stimulus. With the kind of economic times that we are currently in and we're facing, I would prefer to see it remained more of a let's give a hand to those who are doing something to stimulate the economy and help the economy right here in the city of Palmer. Again, that was the original intent. Does it have to completely stay that way? No, but I think we should take our time and really process this. So I'm with the Councilman Best on this one. I just as soon put it off and work on it some more in whatever way we can, whether it be another stab at getting together with the Board of Economic Development and making sure that what they're telling us from their business aspects, the way they feel about it, and maybe even do I don't know, just get some more information in on what kind of changes are really needed rather than chop it more than in half. Thank you.
Councilwoman Valerius?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm in agreement with how it's written, and the discussion that we had was over definitely some of these points about talking about city limits of Palmer or within a mile or whatever. And we had asked the board to look at this, to go over it and resubmit something to us. So they have actually done that, and I think they've done a really good job because I think it's cleaned up rather than trying to define and name every little single potential thing that we could support, which is what was happening in the older version of this. I think cleaning it up, we still have the right, which thanks to our interim city manager pointed out, or if it was our city clerk, that the council shall retain the right to make the final decision in terms of that overall grant and individual grants. So we haven't given up that right. And I think it does still give us a chance to discuss these things. It puts guidelines out there, but it isn't listing things. And that's what the last one was doing, was listing things, which is what got us into a longer discussion, I think, in January. So I think the way that it's written now is actually, I think it's good. It's appropriate. And I don't know from a historical standpoint when this was documented and this whole concept was introduced. But I mean, we're in 2020 now, so I mean, a lot of things have changed, and this seems like a good ordinance going forward. So thank you.
Further questions or comments, or even emotions from the council members?
Madam Mayor.
Councilman Best, go ahead, sir.
I move to postpone this until the second meeting in August.
Madam Mayor, I'll second that motion.
Okay. And let's see, do you have a date, or is the second meeting in August enough definition for you, or?
That date then would be August 25th.
August 25th. Yes. Okay, so there is an amendment on the floor to postpone let's see, let me get it here. Ordinance number 20-005 to the council meeting on August 25th. Discussion on that postponement.
Madam Mayor, this is Steve.
Uh-huh. Go ahead, sir.
Which, sir?
Oh. I only heard Steve, so I'm sorry. But Richard, did you want to address your motion first? I guess that's
I will yield to the councilman.
Carrington. Okay. All right, Councilman
I
Carrington.
was just going to suggest that if we're going to postpone it to August 25th, that we should go ahead and do another public hearing while we're at it.
Okay. On August 25th. Okay. 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 Councilman Best, did you have further discussion or points to be made on your motion to postpone?
Yes, Madam Mayor. In this postpone, I would hope that the new city manager would be able to have time to look at this and to give his opinion on any modifications to the proposed language that is before us tonight.
Okay. Well, he's sitting here in the audience. I don't see him shaking his head, but he's not on the payroll yet, so I guess. Well, he isn't not on our payroll, I guess I should say. But I know he's been listening intently, so I'm sure the existing city manager will gladly pass it off to him. Any further questions or comments or questions on the amendment, which would be to postpone and hold a second public hearing on August 25th? Okay, I think maybe Madam Clerk, we're ready to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Excuse me.
Councilmember Jill Valerius.
No.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs.
No.
Councilmember Steve Carrington. Councilmember Richard Best. Councilmember Burbrick.
No.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs.
Yes.
Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion to postpone has passed.
Alrighty. The one thing I was going to bring up on page 87, where it says the city council may request a community grant to provide either a written or oral report. I think we need to define that a little bit more, like when we do the grant, we should say whether there is supposed to be a written or oral report so it's clear to the recipient that yes, they have to do one. So that needs to be defined, I think, in the new one. Okay. Alrighty, so the next item on our agenda is Action Memorandum 20-039, approving the city manager to enter into an agreement with Resource Data Incorporated for vote-by-mail feasibility study services for $3,000. Does the council wish to have a staff report? Or should we just go ahead and, okay? We will go ahead. What's the wishes of the council regarding this action memorandum?
Madam Mayor. Move to.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion before you is to approve action memorandum 20-039. Questions, comments, amendments to the motion? Yes. Ms. Combs?
Thanks. And I'm not sure if the clerk can comment on this if she's had time to research it, but Nils Andreasen with AML had mentioned that any costs incurred in switching to a vote-by-mail situation was going to be available to be covered by the CARES Act. I believe this falls into that. So while this money isn't budgeted, I believe it would be eligible for reimbursement under CARES Act.
I think she mentioned that in her clerk's report. Not
Fantastic.
this specific item, but that there was items that could be covered. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, further questions, comments, or amendments? Anyone from the council? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead. I'm not going to vote for this. I am not a fan of vote by mail. I think there's a question of ballot integrity regarding voting by mail. And so I am not in favor of this action memorandum. Sabrina, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. While we may not be in favor, or if we are in favor of this, I think it's important to do the study to be able to just show our community what the options are. And then moving forward, we'd be able to have the discussion on to whether or not it fits for us. This is just a feasibility study to see what it would cost us, if it's something that we would succeed with, if it's something that we wouldn't succeed with. I think it's important to make sure that our constituents know that we are doing everything we can to make sure we're making the right decision. Thank you.
Further,
Madam-
Deputy, was that Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I am pretty much out there on record as stating here recently what I believe very strongly in is that we have an uneducated electorate. We already have, there's been a lot of things done in the last couple of decades that has done everything but basically present a ballot to each individual. If an individual wants to vote, they have so many different means right now, and to particularly with other things changing the way they are, I think this would not be a good time to do anything other than to educate our constituency and being able to vote absentee, being able to vote early, being able to vote by proxy. There's a lot of different ways, and most people do not take advantage of those, and part of it is that they're unaware of it, and so I can't support this. I've thought a lot about it since we've talked about it before, and I can't support it because we already have so many options, and I think this is the wrong time to throw something new into the mix. Thank you.
Councilwoman Burbrick? You're muted. We can't.
Councilmember Burbrick, we can't hear you. You're muted.
Wrong one. Sorry about that. I'm going to have to agree with Tim. Oh, that's terrible. Just a moment.
Can you do it through the Zoom? Can you hear me now?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I'm going to have to agree with Councilwoman Combs. This is a feasibility study. This is not us making a decision to actually enact voting by mail. And with the current situation that we have going on with COVID-19, I think we need to be ready to do whatever we can to make sure that we have a fair and safe election come October. We don't know what the situation is going to be like. We need to be able to explore all the possibilities for people to be able to vote in this upcoming election. I just think it would be, especially if we can get the funding through the CARES Act, it would be not a very great idea for us not to at least explore the possibility of what this would look like for the city of Palmer. And so I am going to vote for this.
Okay. Any other? Yes, Councilwoman Valerius, go ahead.
I would agree what's been said by Combs and Rick, that we're feasibility study, and given the current response, it's not costing us anything to do a study. And for us to present to the community that just says, nah, we don't want to do this, I don't like it, you got lots of other options, and I would not call our electorate uneducated or uninformed at all. And I think doing a study is just doing our due diligence, and that is the process, really. And so for us to make a decision we're basically making the decision without all of our knowledge. So I am in favor of doing
study. That's not going to cost the city probably anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions or amendments by the council? Okay, seeing no one, then Madam Clerk, would you go ahead and take the roll for the vote?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Jill Valerius,
Yes.
Councilmember Sabrina Combs, Councilmember Carrington, Councilmember Richard Best, Councilmember Julie Burbrick,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs,
No.
Mayor DeVries.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Okay, the next item on our agenda is action memorandum number 20-041, approving a council community grant in the amount of $500 to the Greater Palmer Chamber of Commerce for the virtual cash mob. Does anybody need a staff report or anything before? Nope, okay. What's the council's wishes on action memorandum number 20-041? Did I hear two votes? So I will. Okay, all right. So it's been moved and seconded that we approve action memorandum number 20-041. Discussion, questions, amendments? Okay, I think maybe we're ready to vote, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Jill Valerius, Councilmember Sabrina Combs, Councilmember Carrington, Councilmember Richard Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Linda Combs, Mayor Edna DeVries.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is information memorandum 20-005. Committee of the Whole discussion on the general financial matters related to COVID-19. Action may be taken by the council following the Committee of the Whole. What would the council like to do? Okay. Is there a second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. We go into the Committee of the Whole for the discussion on the general financial matters related to COVID-19. Discussion, amendments regarding the motion to go in Committee of the Whole. Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for the roll call.
Councilmember Jill Valerius, Councilmember Combs, Councilmember Carrington, Councilmember Best,
Yes.
Councilmember Burbrick,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Combs,
Yes.
motion passes.
Okay. Alrighty, so we are in the Committee of the Whole. Should we just allow the city manager to present? I think, or unless somebody has specific questions they want addressed before we have an overall presentation. Any specific questions? No, okay. So city manager, floor is yours.
Sure, thank you.
Mhm.
If you would allow, I'd like to invite Gina Davis up, the
Sure.
Director of Finance. If and when I stumble, she can
Okay.
pick me up. Okay, I'm gonna try not to stumble, Gina, so you, okay. So the first page on page 118, the significance of page 118 is basically that's the liquidity of the city, okay? We have a checking account with 2 million plus in it, a savings account with $1.7 million in it, and so that's really the liquidity of the city. Also, we have 2 certificates of deposits becoming, the maturity date is in the end of August, so that would add another $246,000. Twice, $492. And then the money market, of course, is liquidity. So that's the significance of the Treasury report. Mainly we're fairly liquid. We're able to meet the obligations of the city going forward. Okay?
Good.
Any questions on the liquidity part? Okay. The next page 119 is the balance sheet, general fund balance sheet, okay? You see, general fund, assets, okay, 3,827, claim on cash, okay? General, the accounts payable down there. Any questions on the balance sheet? Okay, I know that was a quick one, but, really, we want to get to the revenue side of this, I think.
You see, if you have a question, just raise your hand
Yeah.
or try to get Norma or my attention. So otherwise, go ahead and just proceed on, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
so on page 120, the top line is the unassigned fund balance of $3,498,605. What is not taken out of there at present is the capital project fund.
Okay.
Okay, so that is still in that number, so.
Oh, okay, okay.
In order to fund those 08 and 09 accounts, that number would be reduced by the amount that's left to fund it. And I think that is on page, that amount is on page, that is on 154. So the general fund capital projects slated for 2020 on page 154 are all the things that were funded during the budget process, okay? But they have not been taken out of the unassigned fund balance as at present, with the exception of the vehicles that has been, the police vehicle's been taken out, okay? So, that number would be reduced by what, $498,000 roughly, if you add the 50 back in. So the fund balance would be reduced if you continued to fund all those capital projects.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I ask you just one question on that? According to our code, we have to, don't we have to put so
10%,
much
yeah.
of it into the capital
Right.
improvements every year? So do we know what that figure is that we're required by code to put in there?
Yeah, it's on there, but
It's in here?
Gina knows it right off the top of her head. I think it's 346.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Council, it is 10% of the unassigned fund balance,
Okay,
so it's about 340,000.
and that's included in the 548 we have
Yes.
here? Okay, so that means that on page 159, we couldn't go below the 349,000, is that correct?
Correct.
Roughly 350,000, okay, alrighty, so I just wanted to be sure of that. And of that, we have already spent 50,000, but we haven't done like the golf course, none of that, okay? And, have we bid out anything on the sander truck, or is that still sort of up in the air? Okay, alrighty. And we know for sure we're not going to have to do the 61,700 because of that grant's not gonna be happening this year, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, alrighty. So of the 350,000 that we're supposed to, put into the general fund, does that mean, general fund capital projects, does that mean that has to be spent, or does that money can just go in there and then, be turned over for the next year?
According to code, 3.28030, annually at the adoption of the fiscal budget, a minimum of 10% of the anticipated unappropriated reserve shall be transferred to the capital projects fund.
So it
says
doesn't
nothing
say
about
that it has to
spending.
be, so, okay, so okay, great, good, thank you. Alrighty. Everybody with us okay? There where we're talking about on the right page and stuff? Okay, go ahead then, city manager.
Okay, so, starting on page 121 is the start of general fund revenues, okay? You see where our revenue sources are historically. And then you see that we're a quarter through the year. The first quarter financials, obviously a quarter through the year, and so you can see the respective year-to-date budget on the far right-hand column to see where we are. So, I mean, if you have any questions about the
Let me just.
revenues.
Well, these are expenditures, but just on the manager, does this include the amount that we have spent on the manager's department include payment to the former city manager for his time, his leave, et cetera?
These financials are only through March, and he didn't depart until
The end of
April.
April, so, okay, so that, okay, good, thank you. All righty, does anybody else have any other, okay, I don't see anything else, okay, go ahead, sir, continue.
Okay, so I think I would really like to turn to the revenues
Sure,
right now and kind of get that out of
yeah,
the way.
I think that's, let me just ask, does anybody have any other questions on any of the balance sheets that were presented to us, or can we jump to revenue? Okay, everybody's fine to jump to revenue? Okay. Okay,
Sure,
so,
what page are we, Gina? I wanted to
So-
jump to it, but I don't know where it's at.
the sales tax, is that the one?
Yeah, right.
Looks like it's on page 152,
Thank you.
okay?
152.
Does everybody here understand, we're jumping to page 152, which talks about the sales tax, because
Okay.
that's so much of our revenue for our general fund, so.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any questions about any of the other pages that we have jumped past? No, okay, all righty, so go ahead on page 152 then, sir.
So the first thing that I think is probably worthy of noting is the fact that obviously we have a 1 month lag. So if you look at January, those are really December sales receipts, okay?
Nice.
So in 2020, 2020, January, December was $808,000, okay?
Right,
Likewise, February was January, March was February, and April was March. Okay, and the significance of that is that the 551 you see there was March sales. As you all know, the governor ordered closure of non-essential businesses on March 17th, okay? Nearly a half a month. So,
right,
so
so it's
in
not
spite of
down
being-
compared to
yeah, in spite of
last
being
year.
closed for that month, sales tax revenues still exceeded the year before by, roughly $23,000.
Right,
Right?
yeah.
And so I think that can probably be attributed to the run on grocery stores.
All that toilet
Because
paper,
there were, there were businesses that were completely shut down and they had zero sales tax revenue.
Right.
And so the first quarter report this is where I'm headed with this,
Okay.
is it doesn't accurately reflect what happened,
Especially
to those
going to April,
businesses.
right,
You're right.
yeah.
I mean, we're really waiting for April to be able to determine, the significance of the sales tax revenue. We kind of believe that the grocery stores were
Right.
pretty good shape. Gas dropped by a third, okay? And plus, a lot of people were working from home, so
Right.
travelers going back and forth to Anchorage didn't happen. Obviously, restaurants were crushed during this time. So
Right.
the next month's retail sales tax returns are really going to be the best indicator of what's going on going forward. Okay, and so, we made a commitment that, the minute that we have those numbers available, I think that we are able to make those known to you, because
Good,
that's
thank
where
you.
the significance rolls in. Now, May 8th, started a new era of looking at this, because
Right.
that was a partial reopening, And so that's a different thing altogether. So what we're gonna try to do is recognize that, non-essential businesses were closed in March, okay? So sales tax revenue really was it was skewed because of the run on the grocery stores. April was a complete closure, so that's our best model going forward if a second wave happens, right? If something significant happens where they have to go back into this closure of non-essential business, April will be a good indicator of financially what we have available for money going forward. If things stay the same, phase 2 is a success and opening continues, I think May will be reflective of a completely constricted economy and what does our sales tax revenue look in that environment. Of course, you know, the seasonal part of sales tax revenue being that it's summertime and people are going to be out using more fuel, which is a major contributor of our sales tax revenue, you know, buying groceries to go camping and the rest of that stuff. So, you know, it will also be different than a winter closure. So, those are a lot of the things that we thought about when we put together this. Also, we passed out, we emailed out late in the day, and there's copies of this right there. But it's more of where our cash flow, our cash position is, you know, relative to our balance. So currently, I think, Gina, we're at about 3 months reserve for general fund reserve to pay our bills.
Yeah, the unassigned fund balance right now currently is about 3.5 months of general fund expenditures.
Okay, right. And
Yeah.
then we may have some to come back from the capital fund if we don't,
Correct.
yeah. So that would be, I don't know, what, roughly 100,000 or something like that, because it was 548 and so we'd take 350. So there'd be a little bit of slush there too then, right?
Well, actually, we haven't taken any out yet.
Oh, you have,
We haven't.
okay, so that's then, and is that then reflected in the cash and claims on cash? Is on page 119, is that 350,000 reflected on that?
No.
In that item?
No.
Okay, so that's about 4.3. Okay, all right, thank you.
So the significance of this spreadsheet in this before you now is we're trying to estimate that. Got it.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
So we tried to estimate sales tax revenues going forward based on, you know, a reduced economy. So we reduced it by roughly about 30% and then projected some overall revenues. At the same time, we showed in the upper part of this graph what the effect would be on our cash position in the city. Okay, the red line, the red dotted line there indicates cash outflows, and the black line indicates inflows, which are of all the revenues, including property tax and sales tax. And so you can see that the cash flow goes from 3 million, over 3,500,000 down to roughly 2 based on kind of some of our projections. The significant thing that we want you to consider here is that your September number, if you look in September and you look at the graph how it goes to a peak, that's obviously the state fair, okay? And so the state fair provides, as you know, significant revenues to the city of Palmer, but not only the fairgrounds itself, but also the overall, you know, effect it has on the downtown economy as well. And it provides about $425,000 that you know, that's an inflow of about $425,000 over that period of time. So if the fair decides that, you know, they're not going to be able to operate, it's going to be a significant hit, and these numbers will not reflect that the way they are. If they do reflect a reduced fare, we have that reduced at about 40%, okay?
Okay.
So there is some factor already in there.
All right.
So, I
Yep,
mean.
you're right.
Is there a question?
Okay, no,
And so.
I don't think there's any questions. I haven't seen any hands.
Okay, so that's the sales tax effect. I think,
Okay.
you know, we're really waiting for June 1 to get May sales tax so we can really have
Good.
A real better understanding of the impact. You know, obviously, some businesses were way hurt, way more than some others, but, you know, overall, the economy is hurting. So the other thing that we were asked to look at is the sales, the property tax for the city over the course.
Right.
Okay, so that's it was in a spreadsheet that was emailed to you as well, and it's on the wall. So Gina went back to 2015 to
Yeah,
show
you
you,
didn't need to.
to show you the staging of the money.
You didn't need to do that part,
She's
but
an
thank you.
overachiever, that's why.
Okay.
But so anyways,
It's good
so you can
history,
see
thank
1.3, 1.2, 1.3, 1.2, 1.3 in 2019 and then 2020. So the significance of 2020 to date is that if you look at, in 2019, the 119, 168, that number should be allocated to January and February. Those are a cruel part of this spreadsheet. So really, those numbers would be more reflected in January and February too. So in February, sales, the second payment is made to the borough for property taxes, right? So, in March, we get that payment, and that payment is $421. Now, these are actual numbers, right? So if somebody comes in and pays their property tax late, this is what the borough distributes to us. So these are actual numbers, actual pay times. These are not allocated over the course of the year or anything else. Those are accrual. When they get paid, they get transferred in the next month. So you can see that we don't have a great reflection of this either, because the second payment was had in March, prior to any lockdown, shutdown, or anything like that. The significance is that the April payment is a result of March, and it does play some in there. And it looks like it's just typical of what the other years have been. Okay? So again, I guess we could see if there's many delinquent funds, you know, in this amount. That would trickle in through the course of May, June, July, and August. But the real one is going to be in September, when those property taxes get transferred to the city. And we have the property tax expert, of course, in the audience. So, I mean, he probably has a lot more to offer in that than I do. But that's going to be the key, is that August 1st payment for 19 taxes or 20 taxes. I don't know how the borough does it.
April's payment is for 19 taxes. August's payment is for the first half of 20, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got it. So that's the sales or the property tax spreadsheet. And if there's any questions,
Is there any
somebody in this audience can answer it, I bet.
Yeah, any questions? I wanted to see the property tax just to get the idea if we would be looking at a lot of foreclosures this year on property, which would, you know, make a difference on the amount of property tax we got. So that was the reason for my request for that. Anybody have any questions on that spreadsheet? Everybody's fine? Okay. Anybody got any questions on anything overall? On the financials for the city of Palmer? And if not, then I'm ready for a motion to come out.
We just have one more part of this, and that's the
Okay,
CARES
sure.
Act funding, okay? As everybody knows, the
Checks are
LBA
finally
finally
supposed to be in the
passed
mail.
it yesterday. I mean, obviously, there's some question of the illegality of it.
Right.
Thank you. And so this is gonna be an ongoing thing, but we have on the March 26th agenda, request to, you know, accept that money.
May.
Sorry, what did I say?
March.
Boy, I am really.
That's
On the
okay.
May 26th
it's
agenda,
late,
we have
so.
an action memorandum to accept that funding for
Okay.
about $7.5 million. There's not a lot of direction from Treasury, you know, as far as what's an appropriate use of the funds. You know, we kind of feel like utility appears that a utility abatement would be an applicable use. small business, grants would be probably, of course, all of the emergency use of the money for the stuff that was not budgeted, that are necessary to combat COVID-19 are all acceptable expenditures. So it's still work in progress as what's acceptable. And as was pointed out earlier by Mr. Best, is we're very conscious of federal money and the implications it has on future budgets. And so we want to do what's right as far as utilizing the money in the right way.
Right. And have we heard anything from EPA, whether they allowed our?
We have not heard anything from EPA yet.
Okay, all right. So, as city manager said, you'll see there's a resolution on page 157, talking about, excuse me, the late payments, and there's some additional information there on page 156. And so will a similar resolution be on, it's going to be on June 9th. I see that up there for 157. It's going to be on the June 9th agenda. Is that?
Okay.
That's currently what was drafted in here. And just like other items, if it's the wish of the council to move this forward, please provide that direction and it will go to June 9th. Otherwise, this will not move forward. We're looking to council for direction on how you want to proceed with this resolution.
Okay, all right, so when we come out of the committee of the whole on page 157, the date for the legislative history at the top of page talks about June 9th. Is if we want to move that forward to May 26th, we need to make that motion. And I guess maybe we'd like to hear from the two of you. Do you need some instructions to be able to instruct the public about the waiver of late fees and stuff? Or are you already getting lots of requests for those? What?
That's a question for Gina, because I'm not aware of anybody requesting any waivers or.
Go ahead.
Well, due to the Senate Bill 241, the governor pretty much stated that if people were having issues with their utilities, that they could not be shut off, and late fees were to be waived, and a hardship agreement was to be signed. And so we have implemented that with the city.
Okay, good. Okay, all right, okay. Already, good. Anybody else have any questions about that end of it regarding hardship agreements or anything? Okay. Any? Yeah, Deputy Mayor Combs.
I would like to know what the city manager's thinking is on moving this resolution from June 9th to May 26th. I mean, is that something that's desirable?
I mean, it's fine with us. It's up to more than just us. This is ready to go. So.
Okay, that's what I needed to know. If you were asked to make a recommendation, you would recommend to have it moved?
Yes.
Because you're ready. Okay, and I'm glad you're ready. Thank you.
Anything further to discuss in the committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor, may I ask a question then?
Oh, sure.
If Senate Bill 241 already mandates this, then what is the purpose of bringing this resolution forward?
Well, I guess in case we want to now, does the hardship agreement erase that, or is it just postponing the late fees?
It's my understanding that it was
taking the place of the late fees, wiping them out?
Yeah.
Okay, so there isn't a chance then that we would get reimbursed or could use reimbursement funds from the COVID-19 to reimburse the utilities?
The way I understand the CARES Act right now is that it's not to replace revenue.
Okay, but would this does this amount exceed what our estimations were for when we did the budget back in November and December? I mean, is this unusual expenses, late fees? You see what I'm saying? Like, did we estimate the whole year, late fees were gonna be $1,000, and now already they're, what, up over 3,500? So is there anything in there, because we didn't have that budgeted, that revenue, we don't have that other $2,400 budgeted,
We do budget for late fees.
and so it doesn't matter what the number is?
I'll have to double check what we budgeted for late fees.
Okay.
And do a comparison that way.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you. Yeah. And then- But in Palmer, so, anyway, was Deputy Mayor, is that who was trying to get my?
Yeah, I just want to be perfectly clear. The question was put forward because of what's happened at the state level with that legislation. Do we in fact still need resolution number 20, whatever number gets assigned to it? This one about suspending fees and fines and everything else.
I think we probably don't know for sure yet, right? So, and Councilwoman Sabrina Combs?
Couple things, just to speak to what the question was from the city clerk. At NEA, we had to just enact this the second 241 got passed, and it never went through our board of directors because it came from the state as a mandate, so therefore that's what happened. So I think if we pass this resolution, it's just a formality, but regardless, the direction from the state is we can't do it. So I think we could put this on the table, but it doesn't ultimately matter because it's already happening, right?
This resolution addresses both, also the airport, right? And is that airport was just for the utilities? Or are there other late fees for the airport?
I think there'd be other late fees for the airport as far as for people with the lease payments. If they're late, there's late fees for those payments.
Okay, and was that addressed in the governor's mandate, or was it just utilities?
Just utilities.
Just utilities,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay.
So,
And then my other question was about the city manager mentioned small business grants, things to be able to do with CARES Act funding. Is that going to come before us in the future with some ideas and some other options for us? Is that something that we're just still formulating?
the May 26th meeting, he said.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, it'll be nice when we all can be in the same room again, and so, yeah. So, anyway, okay, so I guess we probably still do need that resolution because of the airport, and I don't know if there are other places that we do charge late fees for besides utilities. I don't know. We'll leave that up to you guys to massage this one way or the other, okay? Okay, any further things while we're in the committee of the whole? Okay, can I have a motion to come out of the committee of the whole, please? I'm sorry. Okay, so is there any objections to coming out of the committee of the whole? We're not supposed to vote, so, okay. We are out of the committee of the whole. Okay, any items to be addressed to the at the council for items discussed in the committee of the whole?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, and Deputy.
I would move the legislation proposed regarding the city suspending fees and fines from the 2020 fees and fine schedule be addressed rather than June 9th, but be addressed on the May 26th agenda.
Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay, discussion, amendments, questions to that motion? Okay, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to vote on that motion.
Thank you. Councilmember Jill Valerius? Councilmember Combs. Councilmember Steve Carrington. Councilmember Richard Nest.
Yes.
Councilmember Julie Burbrick. Deputy Mayor Linda Combs. Mayor Reese.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is records of items placed on the table. Madam Clerk?
We have the city manager report. Under his report, he had 3 handouts. It was a cash flow report, annexation report, and a property tax report. And we also have public testimony written, David Fuller's, as it was read into the record, but also written testimony submitted into the record.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is audience participation. Anyone's welcome to address the council on any subject. 3 minutes if you're representing yourself and 5 minutes if you're representing a group. Audience participation is now open. All righty. We will put the spotlight on you. Okay, let's see.
My name is Eugene Carl Haberman, Alaska resident for approximately 42 years, Anchorage resident for 20, and currently a Valley resident. When we dealt with the World Health emergency, the state became saying only certain businesses were to be open and others had to be closed. Also, with the cooperation of many mayors throughout the state, and Berkowitz told what Anchorage had to do, and Berkowitz told what the state had to do. So what I'm saying here is, it created a situation where we had the box stores, Walmarts and Targets open, Fred Meyer's, but many of the goods that are sold at Target are sold by Palmer businesses, Main Street Palmer, Main Street Anchorage, Main Street Wasilla. They couldn't be open. So we created a horde of people going to very few locations, which created a more health risk for those because of the concentration of numbers of people going there. It also created a situation when the governor decided to open up and said certain businesses can open up. He was more restrictive on masks and things like that. But the major players that were allowed to open initially didn't have those restrictions. Unfair. It also created a situation, economic situation for those businesses trying to open up. Could they open up, or will they be able to open in the future? It was an economic advantage to box stores like Target. What box stores like Target I witnessed a few weeks ago, not one customer was wearing a face mask. Now, in a conversation a couple of weeks ago in Anchorage, they were debating on the issue of whether to require a face mask or not. But the public was not part of the conversation. They said, forget it. But what we have here, like in a meeting here, I raised concern about face masks. I was the only one, and one more person in the back, Palmer Free Radio, put one on after I raised concern. Thank you. But if you go to a Borough Assembly meeting, and I'm the only one there at the last one, every staff person was wearing a covering. What's the problem? To the businesses out there, the one thing you can do is put a sign out and not wait for government to tell you and do it. Put a sign out like you would have a sign that says, no shirts, no shoes, no service. The fact is that we're complimenting Fred Meyer's for being on the front line, and many of those people who compliment don't have the courtesy of wearing a face mask. What does that say? This is not over. We do not know when it's going to be over. And we're dealing with fake news day after day. With how many few people have been tested, we do not know. And many of those tests out there are not real tests. And as long as we don't have those answers, we deal with the unknown. What we do know is we could do things like putting on a mask. Thank you.
Anyone else that would like to address the council on any matter? Okay, seeing no one else, audience participation is now closed. We will move to council comments. Can you put the pictures on so I can start in one corner and go for another one, please? Thank you. Okay, Councilwoman Sabrina Combs, you're up in the left-hand corner. Let's start with you, please. Council comments.
Me?
Yeah, you.
I'm in a different order on my.
Oh,
Yeah,
you're right
it's tricky for all of us.
Okay.
All right. So let's see. I want to say thank you to Public Works and Chris Knoll for working with the Palmer High School parents to get those banners hung up on Main Street. These kids got dealt a really crappy hand, and that was it was just really lovely to see that on our Main Street. And I saw parents walking up and down the street yesterday with their heads up looking for their kid, and it was just the coolest thing. So thank you. Also, thanks to Public Works for Cleanup Week. Palmer looks awesome, and thank you to Palmer Chamber for partnering with that. I'm very cautiously optimistic about our town starting to reopen. I was out on Mother's Day. There was a little Palmer walkabout and put on by the downtown merchants, and people were being very cautious, but it was really good to see people out spending money in our town and wanting to be back around each other safely. Huge thanks to Brad for your guidance in this dispatch center transition. This is a huge win-win for Palmer citizens and employees, I think, and you did a lot of work really, really fast on it, so thank you very much. And then thank you to Gina and the finance team for working to navigate all of this CARES Act funding and the effects of this pandemic on our city's finances. I think they're doing a great job. Thank you.
Councilwoman Burberg, you're the next one on my screen, so I'll jump to you.
Awesome. That's not how it is on my screen either. Let's see, I'm gonna start by saying thank you for recognizing May as National Bicycle Month and proclaiming it National Bike Month of Palmer. I can tell you for a fact that the citizens are out there in droves on bicycles.
Good.
It's really pretty cool to see. I want to just note that I'm sad about the delegation the sister city of Japan being canceled, but I completely agree with the decision, and that means that I will be here for the Palmer Art and Garden Fair that I've never been here for before, for the first time, so I'm excited about that. Congratulations to the 2020 grads at Palmer. It's pretty cool to see those banners in downtown Palmer. That's really very neat. And then lastly, I just want to thank the citizens and the community of Palmer for being so supportive of our businesses and really pulling together to support our businesses. It's really been a tough time, but I think that we have such a great community to really support our businesses, and I'm proud to be a member of this community. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Valerius.
Mayor, I don't know where to start. I want to say congratulations to the 2020 graduates. The banners are super cool, which we've heard already. Thank you to Brad tonight for really concise presentations, and Gina for helping us with finances, and we're certainly going to need your guidance with this CARES Act stuff and all of the COVID funding that's happening. I'm really excited about Bicycle Month, and and actually an observation I've made, I walk to work generally once a week or so, and it's been really fun this spring to see people out walking, when usually I am kind of walking by myself in the morning and home by myself at night. And so to see other people on the street has been really fun, and lots of families on bicycles or just walking their dogs, which has been really, really cool. Special shout out to Dave Sutton with Public Works. I had set a bunch of clippings out a week early, and I had gone out when I heard him come here on Tuesday, and I was just kind of like, I didn't mean for you to take these. And he's like, no, I have room. This is great. Thanks. And so it was really, like, definitely went above and beyond. I hope that we can move forward with the Code of Ethics. We talked about it previously, and it seems like that just kind of got lost somewhere along the way. And I I really hope that we actually can maybe even revisit kind of a feasibility study for a vote by mail, just so that we can have all the information to present to our constituents and for the citizens in Palmer. And it's certainly moving that way elsewhere in the state. And so the fact that we are shutting it down without actually studying it is a little bit disappointing to me. But thanks for everybody's input tonight. And I hope everybody has a great week, and I hope everybody had a great Mother's Day weekend.
Okay. Councilman Carrington?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, kudos on those banners for the grads. That's a very cool thing to see out there on our main street. And kudos to Brad Hanson, our acting city manager, for the dispatch. He's probably one of the few people that could actually pull off that kind of hard research and diligent negotiating. I am impressed. And then I guess and speaking of elections and stuff, I would actually look for support for, I know it's not a novel idea, but for designated seats. Bringing that forward as another attempt for ordinance.
Okay. Is there
Mayor, I'd be happy to support that.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right. Further discussion, Councilman Carrington?
No, that's all, Mayor.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Combs?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Because I don't want to take a chance on forgetting it, I want to say that Mr. Hanson and all of the staff there at the city have certainly shown in the last 7-8 weeks. I already consider city staff to be heroes. I've heard nothing but great things about how the city has been handling our COVID lifestyle these days. So, and how helpful they've all been. I think it's been handled really, really in an excellent manner, and certainly does not, present any disappointment for me anyway. So, the only disappointment I really have, of course, is the necessity, and I do truly believe that it's a necessity to have to postpone the sister city trip. I think that our hosts were very wise to suggest that, and it'll keep a lot of different folks a little bit safer, in my opinion. So I'm very happy that the state legislature did manage to agree to get this CARES funding on into communities as fast as possible, and we'll have to see that we, in turn, get it to those that can use it in a helpful manner just as quickly as possible. This, in the last week, the state of Alaska, I just want to make sure it's on the record that the state of Alaska, in my opinion, has lost 2 very bright stars that are now twinkling a little bit brighter up by the Big Dipper, and that's we lost the former Lieutenant Governor Byron Malott, and just yesterday, Mayor Richard Beneville from Nome. These 2 gentlemen did a tremendous amount for our state over the years in the variety of different public offices that they held. We all as Alaskans have benefited from their service, and I think that it just is worth mentioning a little mention of their names, because they will not be forgotten in what they have done for our state. So, other than that, everybody be safe out there. The other heroes are truly those folks that are on hand at the hospital. I spent 6.5 hours in the parking lot there yesterday, so I got my eyes opened to a few new things. But we're all doing really well. I've heard a lot of compliments about how quite a few folks in the neighborhood think that Palmer's handling the whole COVID situation. So thank you for everybody putting in their bit to do so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councilman Best?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm afraid that my phone might die out here any second, but just real quick, the graduates of 2020, those banners, I hope that in our future that is a potential new thing that the city of Palmer takes on and we continue a new tradition. I think that is a beautiful tribute to the local graduates. That is one thing that I hope we do carry through with from what we're experiencing right now. And lastly, to Mayor Beneville of Nome, who has passed, saying that he was constantly known for Hello Central.
I'll just have a couple of things. On the ethics, I'd asked the clerk, and she passed to me the proposed legislation for 2011, 2013, and 2014. I'm getting from Wasilla what their code of ethics is, and I've asked both Bert and Lynn to address anything they feel that's lacking in their code of ethics, or they would change, or should be removed, or whatever. So I have all of that on my desk. We did get a request today from the fair, so anybody that hasn't been to a drive-in movie will get a chance to, I think they're going to do it this weekend, and I can't remember is the other weekend Memorial Weekend? And they won't tell us what the name of the movie is, but in case you've never gone to a drive-in movie, or even if you have years and years ago, it's another fun event that Palmer's putting on. So with that, I will adjourn the meeting.
Richard